All right. Welcome back to Straight Talk, and we are live. And I got one for you. It came up on my memory, and every time that I watch it, I tear up because I could feel every letter of every word from this grandmother's mouth. In respect to the police officer that shot and killed her granddaughter, 7 years old. 7 fucking years old. And I can tell you, it's just heartbreaking. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play that one first. And I put that one on my boy's uh, messenger. And we're going to play it first. And I'll be right back. It doesn't take long. Hold on.
More cops came rushing the house, and I'm laying there screaming, asking somebody to help my granddaughter, because he just shot her in the head. And he wouldn't need the help when they turned on the light to see that she had been shot and killed at the house. Oh, man. Oh, my God. Oh, Jesus. Why you do that? Why you do that? Why you do it? Why you do it? Please tell me why you come in my house like. Tell me why you came in my house like that. You, my grandbaby. You killed her. You tried to blame me. You know I never touched you, Mr. Weekly. You know I never touched you. You know you're wrong. You know you wrong. You wrong. You wrong. She was only 7 years old. She was only a baby, man. She was sleeping, and I told y'all.
Look at this motherfucker's face. Goddamn animal.
Y'all didn't understand. Why y'all do this to me? I get no sleep. I'm sick. I'm sick as hell. I get no sleep. The flashback. I wouldn't wish him on nobody in the world. I wouldn't wish it on nobody in the world. What the 7-year-old granddaughter is great, bro. Gotta keep that posted. That is not right. You look great. I like you for why you look
Whew. Boy, I tell you, white boys, white girls, I've said this a billion and one time, I say it a billion times more. Get your motherfucking asses, sit down, and don't fucking move. Because every goddamn thing you've done to my people, we're gonna do it to you a billion times fucking worse. You think this little girl, 7 years old, laughing and giggling and crying and you laugh with laughter that you motherfuckers don't think that we're not gonna get fucking even? You done lost your motherfucking mind. The table turned, bitches. The fucking table turned. And I can guarantee you the sins of the father and mother shall be visited upon your motherfucking asses for all of eternity. You have no recourse. You have no pity. You have no moral standing. You have nothing but the evil contract that your forefathers signed, sealed, and delivered as a death contract to your present generation. Your death certificate has been signed, sealed, and delivered. There's nothing you can do. Even as Ethiopia's hand stretched onto the heavens, you showed no mercy. None. And no mercy shall fall upon you. Only the sword of Islam shall cut your motherfucking heads off literally and cut you open, dispelling, devouring your motherfucking asses. I am here to tell you, not 50 years from now, it is happening now and it's getting worse every fucking day. I felt every fucking word of that elderly lady, every letter, every word, the pain of that. You motherfucker just laugh and laugh and laugh like it doesn't matter. Because it really don't. See, you white, so you can't do no wrong. You see, you can't uh, pay a price for your iniquity. So it seems in your fucking little goddamn brain. But the world sees. God sees. And I'm here to tell you that the tables turn. There's such a thing as karma. And you reap what you sow. And so shall you reap. America is done. And tonight we're going to be looking at the very elements that will destroy America as we know her. Totalmente, totally no. Because the people who are going to take it over, the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, for which it stands, one nation under God, that belongs to the black man and woman. We created America. The 13 colonies were created by King James, who was a black man, his son and grandson, King George and Charles. We wrote the Constitution, bitches, not you, illiterate motherfuckers. I swear for God, man. It's not out of hate, for hate's sake, but you people love iniquity. You can't do without a day without it. You can't go a day without it. It is the very essence of your soul. You love the 7 deadly sins: greed, gluttony, sloth, envy, pride, wrath, and lust. It is your culture. Black people, you civilized, you uncivilizable animal. 3 times. Once in Egypt, once in Greece and Rome, and after Spain in 1492. 3 strikes and you out. There's no more. The world cannot take it. You are done. You have no leadership capacity. You have nothing. Nothing. Nothing that you can say that your ancestors built because you stole everything from us. You are worthless. Upon the pages of history, you are a vagabond, a bum. And I'm here to tell you all of what your ancestors have done and continue to do up to this very second. There's a price to pay for that shit. And you're going to pay. You're not the real Jews. You're not the real Arabs. You're pale-skinned motherfuckers. You're not the real Chinese, the Japanese. They were black. Everybody was black in the beginning. But I am telling you, from the very soul of my ancestors who are speaking to you right now, the time for justice is here. No ifs, no ands, no buts. It is here. There's no turning back. There's no I'm sorry. There's no none of that. The Gentile time has come, and you're going to hear white folk telling you this. And it's just a matter of fact. The handwriting is on the wall. The guilty verdict is in, and you can't escape justice. So tonight we're going to take a very, very serious look, oh boy, as to the fallout that is going to be happening, and not only economic fallout, political fallout, but physical and spiritual fallout. This is it. By the end of 26, the white boy is going to be on the bottom because you don't even deserve the bottom. You talking about beating your ass at every fucking turn? You ain't seen shit yet. But tonight we're gonna go into it in detail, and it's not me that's saying this. These are scientists that are telling you what is going to happen and what is happening in Italy, Russia, Europe. Cataclysmic uh, earthquakes. The Ring of Fire, so that you know what the Ring of Fire is and where it's located, fire, is soon to be activated. This is it. Starts from Australia, going all the way around Asia, Japan, up here in the northern part of Russia, going all the way over to Canada and Canada to Alaska and down all the way down to South America. That's the Ring of Fire. It's over and it's done. You cannot stop this shit. The overarching argument that, hey, what, Brother Willie, I really appreciate you being here. Like always, man, you're very much appreciated. And it's going to be one, man. We have until the end of 26 until we see the end of American white hegemony. This is it. The Ring of Fire is going to get lit and it's not going to stop. We're going to see a major earthquake, volcanic eruptions, and from Mount St. Helen, it's going to be one. America is done, and the only people who can save America after all of this is done, after the bloodbath has taken place, is the black man and woman. We've created America as a republic, not as a motherfucking democracy. We wrote the Constitution. We created the 13 colonies. And all that land need to be taken and need to be given back to the Native Americans, which is us. Hawaii is not a true state. Alaska is not a true state. We're never given a plebiscite to maintain their independence. All that need to be given back. Justice must prevail. Truth must be told. And I'm here to tell it. We're going to beat the motherfucking brakes off of this white boy because he deserves it. All this shit about the Epstein file, that's more than one file and more than one Epstein. And all the dirt they've done. And Michael Jordan, of all people, is touching the ass over and over and over and over again, smiling and laughing. That motherfucker need to be sued. I would have hit that motherfucker square in the goddamn face. Square in his motherfucking face. And sued him for hundreds of millions of dollars. No motherfucking way. Whatever he did that was great before, that destroys it. I have no respect for that motherfucker. And that's not an AI generated video. That's from real shit. So tonight we're going to look at the breaking news of America's hegemony has fallen. And we're going to be right back. This is 10 minutes. A lot of these videos are not very long. and I'll be right back.
You blinked. You missed how tightly they connect. First, U.S. forces boarded an oil tanker out in the Indian Ocean, far from the Caribbean drama that started this chase, and the Pentagon publicly framed it as enforcing a blockade on sanctioned shipping. The ship being discussed is the Panamanian-flagged Veronica III, and the U.S. message is blunt. They say it tried to defy Washington's quarantine of sanctioned vessels, tried to slip away.
The U.S. has seized another second oil tanker suspected of helping Venezuela avoid sanctions. U.S. forces chased down and boarded the tanker in a pursuit that stretched from the Caribbean to Indian Ocean. Heightened tensions, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard, or has started huge military drills. The IRGC says the series of military exercises are underway in the Strait of Hormuz. Images of military drills by Iran's Revolutionary Guard in the Straits of Hormuz.
And they tracked it all the way from the Caribbean to the Indian Ocean.
This pisses me off. I just bought this ancient remedy guide, and here are the 5
before boarding it. If you're sitting in Tehran, you don't hear law enforcement. You hear something closer to, this is what power looks like when it decides it can reach into any ocean lane it wants, stop a commercial vessel, and call it policy. That's the first domino. Now the second domino. Iran's Revolutionary Guard launches what state media describes as a new round of naval drills in and around the Strait of Hormuz. Testing intelligence and operational capability across the Strait, the Persian Gulf, and the Gulf of Oman. At the exact moment, global attention is already spiking. The timing matters. Hormuz isn't just a narrow waterway. It's the choke point where energy markets, insurance rates, shipping schedules, and great power ego all collide. And when Iran's commanders talk about smart control and readiness, they're not speaking in metaphors. They're signaling deterrence. We see you, we've mapped the pressure points, and we can raise the cost of any confrontation. Before we go deeper, do me a quick favor. Hit like and share if you want more reporting that doesn't treat you like you're hearing this story for the first time. And subscribe if you want to keep supporting journalism that questions power instead of rehearsing it. All right, back to it. Because once you line these events up, you start to see the narrative war underneath the military posture. The U.S. boarding of the Veronica III is being presented by Washington as sanctions enforcement, an extension of a broader campaign aimed at Venezuelan oil flows and shadow fleet shipping networks. The public details being circulated include that the tanker left Venezuela on January 3rd with nearly 2 million barrels of crude and fuel oil, and that shipping trackers have linked it to Russian, Iranian, and Venezuelan oil activity since 2023. While also noting it was listed under U.S. sanctions tied to Iran. Even the ship's registration status gets pulled into the story. Panama's maritime authority said the registration was canceled back in December 2024. But if you're looking at this from Iran's strategic culture, the debate isn't only what paperwork exists. The debate is, who gave the U.S. the mandate to turn long-distance boarding actions into routine statecraft? And that's where Iran's drills become more than drills. In Iranian messaging, a smart control exercise isn't a fireworks show. It's a reminder that the Strait is not a neutral hallway where one power can swagger and everybody else is supposed to politely step aside. Iranian officials have repeatedly emphasized surveillance and control language, talking about full oversight of the airspace, the sea surface, and the subsurface picture. Whether you accept that claim at face value or treat it as deterrence rhetoric, it tells you what Tehran wants you to visualize. An environment where any approach, by aircraft, ship, drone, or submarine, gets detected early, tracked continuously, and put inside a decision loop Iran believes it owns. Now let me slow this down and make it feel real. Picture a commercial captain transiting Hormuz with a deadline, a cargo schedule, and a crew that just wants to go home. Above him, drones, patrol aircraft, radar sweeps. Around him, fast boats, naval escorts, Coast Guard craft, and warships that weren't invited by the coastal states, but are there anyway, because the world's superpower says it has interests. Under him, sonar, subsurface tracking, and the constant suspicion that somebody's testing somebody else. That is not a stable ecosystem. That is a tinderbox with invoices attached. And when powerful states normalize stopping ships across oceans, then act shocked when the local coastal power rehearses how it would respond, the risk isn't only war. The risk is miscalculation. One pilot misreads a radar lock. One commander assumes hostile intent. One merchant vessel gets caught between narratives and steel. You'll also notice how the US and Iran are simultaneously talking diplomacy and preparing for escalation. Iran's foreign minister met the head of the UN, nuclear watchdog in Geneva. Iran's foreign minister met the head of the UN, nuclear watchdog in Geneva, and framed the upcoming talks with language like real ideas and fair and equitable deal, while also rejecting submission before threats. In parallel, U.S. officials are telegraphing that any agreement should reach beyond the nuclear file, pushing issues like missiles and regional policy into the bargain, something Tehran has publicly resisted. The result is a classic pressure cooker. Negotiations wrapped in visible military posture, each side trying to shape the other's risk perception before anyone even sits down at the table. And then you get the political gasoline poured on top. Senator Lindsey Graham in Israel, leaning into the most confrontational language possible. In a press briefing described by Israeli media, he argued a U.S. decision on Iran could be weeks, not months, away. Insert. Now, from an Iranian perspective, this is the tell. When American politicians talk casually about ending a regime, they're not speaking as neutral observers. They're advertising intent. And Tehran will interpret that as existential pressure, the kind of pressure states historically answer with deterrence, not patience. That's why the drills matter right now. They are Iran's way of saying,
running breaks your joints. Tai Chi builds them back. After 50,
saying, if you're openly floating regime change, then you don't get to pretend every Iranian military move is unprovoked. You're the one turning political rhetoric into a security dilemma. So let's talk islands, because this is where the geography becomes strategy. Around the Strait of Hormuz are Iranian-held islands whose names come up over and over in regional disputes and military analysis. Abu Musa, Greater Tumb, Lesser Tumb. Over the years, Iran has highlighted deployments and fortifications there, and outside reporting has described missile systems and air defense assets positioned on these islands precisely because they sit near the shipping lanes. The logic is simple. An island is an unsinkable platform. It extends radar horizons. It complicates flight paths. It can host anti-ship and air defense systems that force an adversary to spend resources just to approach, let alone land. And from Tehran's point of view, that means any hypothetical American or Israeli landing is not a clean special forces raid. It becomes a costly operation under surveillance, under fire, and under political pressure the moment it starts. This is also why you keep hearing Iranian commanders use totalizing language, control over air, sea, and subsurface. It's partly messaging, yes, but it's also a way to deter specific fantasies, that a technologically superior force can appear suddenly, strike quickly, and leave before consequences arrive. Iran's signaling is the opposite. We're built to make consequences arrive fast. If you're a country in Asia watching this, you're thinking about energy security and insurance rates. If you're in Europe, you're thinking about supply chains and inflation shocks. If you're in the Gulf, you're thinking about being the battlefield nobody wants to admit they're building. And if you're in Iran, you're thinking they want deterrence without restraint, control without accountability. That's why Iranian media and officials lean into the language of piracy and aggression, because it reframes U.S. actions not as law enforcement, but as coercion dressed in bureaucracy. Now, I'll be honest with you. The next few days are where risk concentrates. You've got diplomacy happening under a canopy of threats, public drills, and political statements about regime change. You've got a strategic choke point where even rumors can move markets. And you've got two sides that both believe backing down invites more pressure. That's the recipe. And it's why your audience will feel this story even if they don't follow Middle East politics. It's not distant. It's the price of fuel, the cost of shipping, the stability of global trade, and the question of whether international law is a real thing or just a word powerful states use when convenient. So, when you hear about the IRGC drills starting February 16th, 2026, don't treat it like a headline that fades by tomorrow. Treat it like a signal flare. Iran is telling Washington and Tel Aviv that the strait is not a stage for intimidation without consequence. And when you hear a U.S. senator in Israel openly talking about regime change being a risk he's willing to take, understand why Tehran hears that as a threat to sovereignty, not a policy debate. And that's the core tension I want to leave you with today. If powerful states can board ships across oceans to enforce political aims, and if rival states respond by hardening choke points that the world depends on, then the rules-based order turns into a slogan, not a system. The world doesn't just need deterrence. It needs restraint. Because the people who pay first are rarely the politicians giving speeches. They're the sailors, the truck drivers, the families trying to afford energy, and the regions that become front lines because geography didn't give them a choice. Thank you so much for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and until we see next time, God bless you.
All right, so this is the military physical power that the global south is exhibiting. This is not no goddamn joke. This is not no play game. This is not no fainting or acting like. The black man is slowly and quickly, or if I can say that, I'll make it sound like I propose to slowly and quickly, but you know what I'm trying to say. That the power shift, economic, political, spiritual, and physical fucking power is changing hands. And it's going to end with all of it being in a black man and woman's hands by the end of this fucking year. Gaddafi called it. He said, I am the cork that if you remove me, you will be opening the door to all of hell for all of eternity. It's yeah. Yeah. So, we're going to go on and hold on. Let me check these out. I want to make sure. Okay. We're going to go to the next one. Hold on. It's kind of prevailing here. That's where I want to go. And this Epstein bullshit, the redacted version, I've been trying to find it so I can really go into details, but have not been able to find it. So we're just gonna do the next best thing as far as what is expected. So we're gonna do this one first. What our ancestors did to these motherfuckers, white invaders. It was not no white boy. It was a black guy who had red henna or dye in his hair. All right. And then we're gonna go to the big de-dollarization movement, and then I want to cut on over to all of the evidence that I have that will display what I've been saying all along for the last 2 years or so. That the world is sick and tired of this white motherfucker. It is vomiting it up with all of these earthquakes, with all of these mountains and volcanoes erupting. All of that hate is coming back. And there's not going to be one white boy left, if any. I'll be right back. 10 minutes.
Here's a picture of Ramses, which the Eurocentrists want to claim is evidence that Ramses was a white man because this is supposedly his mummy. And as you can see, he has reddish hair. So the implication is that if a mummy has red hair, then ergo that mummy must be that of a white man. That is why in the picture on the left, you have a picture of a black man to show that who also has white hair. And black men, as they get older, oftentimes the texture of their hair is, and I can show you thousands of pictures like that, more like this, even if it was more kinky prior to that, prior to their aging. Gaston Maspero, 1887. This was, in truth, the body of Ramses II. The hair is thick, the skin of a brown hue with black marks. The skin of Ramses II is of an earthy brown spotted with black. That's Gaston Maspero, Unwrapping of the Mummies, 1886. Unwrapping of the Mummies, that means he was there at the unwrapping of the mummies. That alone and the images prove that he was not a white-skinned man, but a black man. Now, the picture that I'm about to show is very revealing. It is a well-preserved image of Ramses II smiting a leucoderm white-skinned Libyan. And I want you to pay attention. In fact, you can't help but notice it's very obvious that the white-skinned Libyan depicts a typical white man. And I want you to compare that to Ramses II, who is seen in this image. Ramses II, the Black Pharaoh. And then I want you to ponder, how is it that these Eurocentrists, in all of their delusional fantasies, can create this myth that is actually picked up by supposedly intelligent people, that Ramses or any of the other Egyptians, other than those that were Johnny-come-latelys, and we would discuss that as well. There was a time that there were white people who sat on the throne in Egypt, but they were the invaders. They did what they historically have done throughout the world, which is when they go in and invade and conquer other nations. But that was long after the greatness of Egypt had been established by the original Black Pharaohs. Now let's look at the picture. Okay, there you have Ramses II, the Egyptian pharaoh, and you have the white-skinned Libyans being trampled upon. The Eurocentrists never want to show you this picture.
Now, I don't want to say white skin, pale skin. See, okay. But stop calling them what they are not. They're not European, they're not Anglo-Saxon, they're not Caucasian, they're not white, they're not, whatever. They're pale skin, bleached out niggas, troglodytes. It continues.
How can they possibly explain that? And all of the Libyans are depicted in the same way. Very white-skinned. These are the white people of Egypt, the ones being trampled on.
Invaders,
invaders. There was a time when white people did invade the black Egyptian empires, and they did place themselves on the throne, and they did make a few monuments of white people. But you have to understand the chronological order of the empires you are looking at. And anyone that does not understand that the white pharaohs came much later either has not done their homework, or they are delusional, or they are lying to you. One of the three. White, black. Here's another image. This picture here is depicting the Nubians, another black race of Africans whose empires actually preceded the Egyptians. They also had a lot of monuments in Nubia that are very similar to the ones in Egypt. And there was a time also, because there were different hierarchies of rulership in Egypt, to where the Nubians, under King Tarkan, overthrew the Egyptian empire and sat on the throne as well. These are the Caucasians, the Libyans. But all of the others are black. Even though there is the very dark-skinned Africans and the more brown-skinned Africans. Most African Americans are brown-skinned Africans. Very few are black like this. But yet and still, they are our brothers. We are all black. Whether we are this black or this black, we are all black. This is white.
Stop calling them white, pale skin, troglodyte, Urus.
This is white. This is black. Simple. This is black. This is black. Now we're going to show you finally two images where Ramses II is shown as the same skin tone of his Nubian counterparts, and sometimes identical to the Semites, but Ramses II is never shown with white skin or what is called necoderm. Watch this. These are the Nubians. And this is Ramses. The Nubians come in various shades. Now, Eurocentrists like to use this image to try to suggest that the Egyptians were not black because they show pictures of the Egyptians trampling over their enemies who were at one time the Nubians. But what they fail to point out is that yes, you had the very black-skinned Nubians, who are the ones obviously being trampled upon. And unlike the white Libyans, they come in various shades. They point out the ones who are very black-skinned, but they ignore the fact that many of the Nubians are depicted by the Egyptians with the exact same skin hue as them. They did this purposely. They obviously used only a few different shades of color, and they wanted to show and make a distinction. And they wanted to show the difference, because this is what the Nubians were like. This is how they were depicted. And many of them were exactly the same as the Egyptians. And with that, I rest my case.
Okay, one. So as we move forward, you guys, I want you to stay focused on where we are going with this. It's all about facts. I don't give a fuck about my feelings, my emotion, none of that. I always bring facts. Facts, facts, facts. The fact that I'm a man, the fact that I am speaking right now, and the fact that you can hear me, the fact that you can see me, the fact that I'm a black man, you can't argue that. So, as we move forward, be mindful of our ancestors and what they did to these enemies of ours. They killed them because they don't belong. After civilizing them and keeping them out of our civilization for 10,000 years, when we finally let them in, see what they do? They take it and bastardize it. They don't know what they're doing. We created medicine, law, physics, astronomy, astrology, algebra, and they took that shit and they don't even know what the fuck they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. And so when we look at this video, big de-dollarization move. How do you fuck up an economy and get it into $38 trillion in debt, or $12 trillion throughout Europe, $4 trillion just by itself in Italy? I mean, yeah, in Italy and France, because you're stealing the fucking money. I'll be right back because this is the direct correlation between Africa and the new power brokerage that they're gonna have. All the resources in black folks' hands. We don't need white folks. White folks need us. America, we don't need America. America needs Africa. 80% of its resources that it needs to be stable and become and continue as a global hegemony comes from Africa. It's over. I'll be right back.
India's central bank has just proposed something that could reshape how countries trade with each other. According to a Reuters report, the Reserve Bank of India wants BRICS nations to link their digital currencies. But what does this actually mean? Right now, when India trades with Brazil or Russia, payments often go through the US dollar and a system called SWIFT. It's slow, expensive, and gives America significant control. India's proposal would create a direct digital highway between BRICS countries. The RBI has recommended this idea be placed on the agenda for the 2026 BRICS summit, which India will host later this year. If accepted, it will mark the first time BRICS formally considers linking members' digital currencies. BRICS includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, plus newer members like UAE, Iran, and Indonesia. Each country is developing its own central bank digital currency or CBDC. India has the e-rupee, which has around 7 million users. China has the digital yuan. These are government-backed digital versions of regular money. The proposal would connect these systems so countries could pay each other directly in their own currencies, bypassing the dollar entirely. Why does this matter? It could make cross-border payments faster and cheaper. It reduces the dependence on the US dollar and the SWIFT network, and it gives countries more financial independence, especially important given rising geopolitical tensions and the use of sanctions as a political tool. But there are massive challenges ahead. None of the BRICS countries has fully launched a digital currency yet. They are all still running pilot projects. Technical hurdles are enormous. How do you make 5 different systems talk to each other? Who sets the rules? How do you handle trade imbalances when Russia sells more to India than India sells to Russia? Russia and India tried trading in local currencies before, and Russia ended up with huge piles of Indian rupees it couldn't use. The proposal builds on a 2025 BRICS summit declaration in Rio de Janeiro that called for better payment system interoperability. Reuters reports that RBI is exploring solutions like bilateral currency swap arrangements between central banks and weekly or monthly settlements to manage imbalances. The US has warned against moves to bypass the dollar. President Trump has previously called BRICS anti-American and threatened tariffs on members. This proposal could irritate Washington, which sees dollar dominance as a strategic power.
India insists this isn't about
Damn, Jay.
de-dollarization. The RBI
Brush your
says
teeth
that
after.
it's about efficiency, resilience, and modernizing payments. But the strategic implications are hard to ignore. BRICS countries represent 45% of the world's population and 35% of the global GDP. Experts say that a fully functioning alternative to the dollar system is probably decades away, if achievable at all. But it does signal a shift towards a more multipolar financial order where emerging economies have alternatives. India's proposal is ambitious but faces a long, uncertain road. Whether it becomes reality or joins the list of unrealized BRICS ambitions remains to be seen. For more news and updates, keep watching It's Alignment.
Now, one of the things that I wanted to focus in on is the fact that AFRICOIN is live. That all of the global south, let me pull that up, global south. This is the global south. All of brown skinned countries. Everything is a brown skinned country, but based on how we see the world, this is white, right? Except for Russia. Russia is white, but they're part of the BRIC, so you can't include that. So all of this and Australia. This is the global south. All of the world's important resources are under control of black people. The AES, all of this, remember this is the Caribbean, and all of this is the Atlantic Ocean islands. All of this is included in the AES. If they have not joined the AES as of yet, they will, because it means sovereignty, power, wealth, position, authority, and moral authority upon the earth. Money talks and bullshit walks. So as we move forward, I want you to pay attention to what is really going on in this world as it clamps down on the dirty, filthy, nasty animals that these motherfuckers are in respect to the Epstein Island and the Epstein file. This bastard is under arrest already. I'll be right back.
Would you believe it? Just the other day I posted a video. Just yesterday or the day before I posted a video talking about why are some of these people who have been exposed to the Epstein files not being arrested? Why is there not being at least one arrest? And guess what happened? 2 people have been arrested. One of them is the gentleman who I talked about in my previous video where he was exchanging emails with Epstein for over 10 years talking about torture methods they done on escorts, prostitutes, children, all that kind of stuff. Very, very rich Emirati CEO. So it says here, Emirati CEO who sent Epstein torture video arrested after resigning. So we know he resigned. I mentioned that in the video. So let's get into it. It says here, Sultan Ahmed bin Suleiman, former CEO of Dubai-based DP World, has been arrested by UAE authorities. He resigned earlier this week after being unmasked as the sender of a torture video to Jeffrey Epstein. In April 2009, while Epstein was serving a sentence for soliciting a minor, he emailed bin Suleiman. Who's this guy? Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the video torture. The torture video, sorry. The pair exchanged hundreds of emails. First, before we carry on, he knew the man was spending time due to like PDF, right? And he was still emailing this guy. That's what I mean. Like, don't be fooled by these people, you know. Don't be fooled by these people. Anyway, the pair exchanged hundreds of emails over a decade discussing SEX, escorts, and arranging visits to Epstein Island. Bin Suleiman once wrote to Epstein about their encounter, the best SEX I ever had. This is meant to be a Muslim man. You're fooled by these people high up. You think that these people high up really, really follow the same rules that they tell us to follow?
Hell no.
Look, I'm glad he's been arrested because he sounded like a real asshole. You know, the torture videos, the best SEX I ever had. We know he was one of the crazy ones on the island. but there were those who were worse than him, like I said. And what is, look, I'm not making comparisons, I'm just speaking logically here. Something isn't right. It isn't right. All of them in general, something isn't right. The things that they have done to minors, the things that they've done to women against their own will, to young girls, to young boys, what?
And they have a culture of importing, if I can say importing, or letting in women who they use as sex objects to piss and shit on them. These are some nasty motherfuckers. White Arabs are not even real Arabs. There's a book called The Arabs that explains to you point blank that the real Arabs have always been dark skinned, very, 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 very dark skinned, damn near black. This motherfucker, I pray to God he dies a painful fucking death. Man.
Why is something not being done? Why are people still worshipping Trump? Why are people still worshipping Bill Clinton? Why are people still worshipping all these people whose names have been listed in the Epstein files for doing the most craziest and most heinous of acts? What's going on? Lives were lost. Lives have been affected. People have been traumatized for life. The former prince, he himself, the former prince, I don't want to mention his name anymore, right? He himself was involved in a major case when one of the most important and crucial people in that case, a plaintiff, passed away miraculously. Miraculously just passed away. Coincidentally just passed away in a car accident. Come on. Come on. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Is this a major kind of victory? Is this the beginning? Is this the domino effect? Are we going to see something in the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months or years, or a couple of years from now? We're going to see these people really, really, really face the consequences of all this stuff that they've mentioned in the Epstein list. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, press the notifications bell, get everything that I post in the future. Once again, thank you very much for watching. And watch my previous video where I discussed why these people have not been arrested. The link is in the description. Peace.
Okay, we're getting down to the wire here. It's not going to take long. So what I really wanted to do was to focus in on the Epstein files and white folks' nastiness, and it has even spilled over to Niger, as if they want to be a part of this motherfucking crazy shit. Ouattara, I think is his sister-in-law, some fucker. Her ass is out here bringing women and girls and boys to Epstein. Why? Find her fucking ass and just kill her and everybody involved. I'm just absolutely sick to my fucking stomach with the goddamn bullshit. I really am. I am at my wit's end. All these motherfuckers gotta, there's no jail time. All these motherfuckers gotta go. And so now we're here with this white boy being man enough to say white folks' time is up. 26 minutes long, and I'll be right back.
Trump-loving family members don't understand is that breaking loose of all hell is going to be on you. Because, see, according to Luke 21:24, the time of us Gentiles is up. Yes, it is. Because it says at one point Jerusalem would be trodden and the inhabitants of that would be taken as prisoners or slaves across the world, including the United States. And our black brothers and sisters, whose ancestors are the true Hebrews, would remain slaves across the globe and in the United States until the time of us Gentiles is up.
Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sabine Destrana. Thank you so much for all the love and support. To my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, and also educate each and every one of us, you guys are the real. And for centuries, one word has carried weight, mystery, and controversy: Gentiles. Who are the Gentiles? Really? Were they simply the nation outside of Israel, or is there a deeper spiritual meaning hidden in history? And when we talk about the chosen people, what does that actually mean? Privilege, responsibility, or prophecy? Across generations, people have wrestled with the idea of divine judgment. Empire has risen and fallen. Nations that once oppressed other eventually collapsed. From ancient Babylon to Rome, history shows a pattern. Power doesn't actually last forever, but is this a coincidence or a consequence for today? Many are asking whether judgment is unfolding in our time. Some believe that those who have persecuted God's covenant people will face accountability. Others question whether the term genders has been misunderstood or even weaponized. In this commentary, we are going to step back from the emotions and dig into history, scriptures, and context to understand who the genders were, what chosen truly meant, and what judgment actually represents in biblical tradition. Anyway, lovelies, let's dive right into it, and we are going to come back to talk about it.
Hey family, this is your brother Dana, and I'm coming to you from that place in one love. I've said it over and over to you, my white evangelical, conservative, Republican, Christian, Trump-loving family members, that contrary to what President Donald Trump is saying to you and promising you, you are not about to enter your golden ages. I'll say that again. You are not about to enter your golden age, because you are entering your season of reaping what our forefathers in this nation have sown for over 400 years. Because see, there's a promise in Revelations chapter 13, verse 10, when it says that he that kills with the sword, or in this case, white family, the gun, must then die by that gun. See, even Jesus himself warns you, white family, in Matthew chapter 26, verse 52, when he said, those who live by the gun will die by the gun. I only want you to know this so you're not going to be shocked. You won't have to be in fear, because you'll understand why your children are no longer safe in school, why you're no longer safe in stores, why your leaders are no longer safe. Because you, my white family, are about to get the promise of Revelations chapter 13:10. That when you have lived by this gun, you slaughtered the natives that lived here. You used it to enslave our black brothers and sisters. And therefore it is time that it is for you to reap what we have sown. So contrary to what President Donald Trump has spoken to you, that you're entering your golden ages, I want you to know that in fact you are entering your last ages. See, Ezekiel chapter 18 verse 2 says, the fathers have eaten those sour grapes. They've lived that evil and passed it on to now the children, suffering for the consequences. Unless, of course.
Hold on. I want to send it to a friend of mine. Almost done. I'm sorry.
Pero yo te dije a ti que fuera a apagar la alarma, Aaron. Ya, nunca.
Okay, yeah. So what time is it? Tell me now. Okay, so let's get back.
You believe that the God of the Bible has ordained you as my white family to never reap the consequences of your evil behavior. But contrary to your belief, I know that there is a God that is coming back to make things right, to bring justice. Justice for the indigenous, justice for our black brothers and sisters, actually, who are the true chosen people of the Most High Yahweh. And so to you, my white family, I must say again, you are not entering your golden ages. But in fact, you're entering an age where you will understand what it means to live in constant fear, and you will understand the pain of losing your life or the life of loved ones due to the gun, because you are reaping what we have sown for over 400.
Yes, white boy, you are done
Pill to swallow,
forever.
but you're going up.
Amen.
This is your brother Dana, and I'm coming to you from that place.
Who are the Gentiles? Let's talk about it. After this video, everybody's going to know if you're a Gentile or you're not a Gentile. So let's start with Psalms chapter 83. And you guys need to pay attention because I'm going to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you. Psalms 83, starting at verse number 3. And it goes, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people, right? And consulted against thy hidden ones. Verse 4, they have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation. The name of Kobe may be no more in remembrance. I think that sounds familiar. There's a group of people who don't have a name, who are pushed out of society. And those people are the chosen people. And everybody else in the world, doesn't matter which nation you come from, if you don't come from Sub-Saharan, you are a Gentile.
I heard President Donald Trump say today that if Hamas does not release the hostages by 12 o'clock this Saturday, all hell is about to break loose. Well, President Donald Trump, you are absolutely correct. All hell is about to break loose. But where you and my white evangelical conservative Republican, Christian, Trump-loving family members don't understand is that breaking loose of all hell is going to be on you. Because, see, according to Luke 21:24, the time of us Gentiles is up. Yes, it is. Because it says at one point Jerusalem would be trodden and the inhabitants of that would be taken as prisoners or slaves across the world, including the United States. And our black brothers and sisters, whose ancestors are the true Hebrews, would remain slaves across the globe and in the United States until the time of us Gentiles is up. And that time is up. It also says in that scripture that those who are currently in Jerusalem who trampled it down are also Gentiles. And it is time now that the Most High Yah is coming back to get his true chosen people, our black brothers and sisters, to give them all rightfully their land. And so what is really in store for you, my white, evangelical, conservative, Republican, Christian, Trump-loving family members? You can look in Exodus, what was left of Egypt after the Most High God got done with the Egyptians. Or we can look at Revelation chapter 18, starting at verse 6, where it says that the Most High God is going to give you what you have given out for 400 plus years. In fact, he's going to give you from your own cup of evil double the portion. He says that as much luxury and how much glory you gave yourself is now going to be turned into torment and grief and misery. So yes, President Donald Trump is correct when he says that all hell is about to break loose. But the detail you need to know is that when all hell breaks loose, it's going to be on you. Because the time of us Gentiles is up. And family, there is no military, there is no rocket, no president, no government, and no other God that will be able to keep the Most High God from coming back to redeem and to set free his precious chosen children our we call black brothers and sisters. I wanted to reiterate the truth to you again tonight, as the words from your president will come true, but not the way you think. This is your brother Dana, speaking truth regardless, still coming from a place in one love.
Oh, my. What y'all think? Tell it in the comments. I love y'all. Bye.
This is the Bible Unlocked. The Gentiles cut off. Romans 11 verse 13. For I speak to you Gentiles, and as much as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify mine office. Paul is speaking to the Gentiles in this chapter. Gentile meaning someone from a non-Israelite heritage. So Paul says, I'm speaking to you Gentiles right now as he's going on in this epistle. Romans 11 verse 18. Boast not against the branches. Paul says to the Gentiles, you natural Gentiles, boast not against the branches. Don't get lifted up with pride against the natural branches. But if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. Because the children of Israel didn't come into your covenant. You came into the children of Israel's covenant. The covenant was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the 12 tribes of Israel, not to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the Gentile nations. You coming into our tree, we're not coming into your tree. So he says, boast not against the natural branches. Don't get lifted up with pride, like a lot of you out there have done. Thou will say then, this is Paul about to give one of the realest prophecies in his epistles. Thou will say then, watch what he says that the Gentiles were going to say, and watch how it has been fulfilled in today's modern Christian church. The branches were broken off. The children of Israel were done away with, because that's who the branches are referring to in this chapter. The branches referring to the 12 tribes of Israel. The branches were broken off. The 12 tribes of Israel were done away, that I might be grafted in. So God can bring in me and the rest of my Gentile familia. Exactly what has happened. Now today, you don't even know who the children of Israel are. No one even talks about these people in the church. This is who the book is. The whole entire book is referencing these people, and nobody even knows who they are. Because the Gentiles have boasted against the natural branches. You boasted against the natural branches. This is what Paul told you not to do. You always hear people leaving comments about the nation, the children of Israel were cut off. Now God engrafted in the Gentiles, and we're all God's people, and there's no more Jew or Greek. Just totally boasting against the natural branches. Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off. And thou standest by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear. Be not high-minded, but fear. You're supposed to be fearful and trembling. Your position in regards to the Most High, because he chopped off the natural branches. You're supposed to come into the fold and be fearful and be on your P's and Q's. Did the Gentiles do that? Absolutely not. They got high-minded and lifted up. You can see it all in the Christian doctrine today, or you can look at the comments that's going to be left by Gentiles in this video, and you can see the people are high-minded. For if God spared not the natural branches, for if God cut off the children of Israel from their own olive tree, if God did this to his own people, take heed lest he also spare not thee. You better beware that the Most High will cut you off even faster than he did his own people. And that's what you're going to find out in this message. You're supposed to beware lest the Most High cut you off as well. And boasting against the natural branches is one of the ways that's going to get most of you Gentiles cut off. Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God. On them which fail, severity. On them, who's the them? It's talking about the children of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel that fell. Severity. That's what happened on us, the 12 tribes of Israel. Slavery, oppression, poverty. This is the severity that the Most High put on the children of Israel because we were in unbelief and didn't keep His commandments and wanted to follow the Gentile nations and do the customs of those of you people. But towards thee, goodness, if thou continue in His goodness. But towards thee, you Gentiles, if. See, here's the stipulation that they're not going to teach you in the churches. If you continue in His goodness, see, the Most High is dealing with conditional love and conditional covenants and a conditional agreement. If you continue in His goodness, that was the stipulation that the Most High gave through the Spirit, that Paul gave through the Spirit of the Most High to give to the Gentiles. He says, "You will be in His, you won't be cut off if you continued in His goodness." Now, did the Gentiles continue in His goodness? You were supposed to take the gospel in the authentic form and go and spread it throughout the world. While the children of Israel, while we fell and we served our captivity and our punishment, you were supposed to be taking the correct doctrine and spreading it throughout the four corners of the earth until we came to the fullness of our punishment and came back as the rulers of the earth. That's what the Gentiles were supposed to do. But instead, what'd you do? You took the customs of your forefathers, paganism, and you amalgamated it with the Bible. Then you went with war, conquering different countries and pushing the Roman Catholic doctrine on people that you've enslaved. That's what the Gentiles did. So are you following or continuing in His goodness? Absolutely not. That's why Paul says this. Otherwise, thou also shall be cut off. And that's what you're going to find out is going to happen to the Gentiles.
With this no shoes policy, we anticipate that Americans and travelers and those coming into our country will be very excited that they will no longer have to remove their shoes. The one thing that I will say is that doesn't mean that there won't be times once in a while where someone will have to remove their shoes. If they get put into a different situation or need additional layers of screening where that may be asked of them. But overwhelmingly, the policy will be that no longer will that be required of every single person that comes to a checkpoint. The golden age of America is here. We're so excited that we can make the experience for those individuals traveling throughout our airports in the United States much more hospitable, more efficient for them, more timely, and that they can get to their destinations and spend much more time with their loved ones and with their families and with those accomplishing great things for their future.
Let's actually talk about this slow. The thing is that historically and biblically and responsibly, when people talk about Gentiles, especially in online space tied to prophecy and judgment, there is often a mix of, theology, history, identity, policies, and emotion all blended together. So let's separate that the word actually meant for how it's being used today. In Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, the word translated a Gentile comes from the Hebrew Ol, Goyim, which actually means the nation, right? It did not originally mean even people. It did not mean a specific race. It did not mean white people, right? It simply means non-Israel nation. In ancient Israel context, if you were one of the part of the covenant people of Israel, you were considered one of the nation or a Gentile. In the New Testament Greek, the word is Eden, which also just means nation or people. So historically, Israelites is equals to covenant nation. Gentiles is every other person. That is it. In the Hebrew scripture, Israel is described as chosen by God, but chosen in the context meant chosen for responsibility, and not superiority. They were chosen to follow the law, Torah, to represent God's justice, to model righteousness, to be a light of the nation. But the Bible itself repeatedly shows that Israel was also judged when they become unjust, oppressive, or adulterous, right? Being chosen never meant immunity from judgment. Historically, the Jewish people descended of ancient Israel experienced Babylon as a Roman destruction of Jerusalem and thereabout. The idea that judgment is coming on the persecutor is rooted in biblical themes of divine justice. The Hebrew prophet consistently warned the nation who oppressed Israel would face consequences. For example, Babylon was judged after conquering Judah. Israel was actually condemned for brutality. Rome eventually collapsed. But here is the key point. The prophet also warned Israel themselves of judgment when they oppressed the poor or turned to injustice. Judgment biblical theory is about justice, not ethnicity. When Christian or Christianity emerges, especially through Paul's letters, sometimes racial happens. Paul argues that Gentiles can be grafted into God's covenant. Faith, not ethnicity, define belonging. There is no Jew or Greek in terms of spiritual across or access. So the line shift from ethnicity identity to spiritual alignment. That's important because in Christianity theology, Gentiles stop being a permanent outsider category. So now here is where things got complicated online, especially in certain religious or identity-based movements. You hear claims like the real Israel are X group, the Gentiles are this group, and judgment is coming for a specific race. History proven who these chosen people are. There's narrative of emerged from trauma, historical oppression, desire for justice, identity reclamation, reactions to racism. And while it's understandable that oppressed communities search for divine validation, we have to be careful not to turn biblical language into modern racial revenge theology. The Bible concept of judgment was never racially emulated theory, it was moral accountability. In Jewish thought, the day of the Lord referred to a time where oppressed would end, injustice would be corrected, arrogant empire would fall, the poor would be vindicated. But the prophets repeatedly warned the day of the Lord is dark for those who practice injustice. Even if they think they are God's people, that means no group gets a free pass, right? In Christian theology, judgment day becomes universal. All humanity stands accountable, not by any other thing again. But the thing is that throughout history, every or whatever groups have believed God is about to judge them because we are the chosen people. It has led to violence, medieval state, religious wars, supremacy, ideology, and all of that. History shows that when divine judgment is weaponized against ethnic group, it becomes destructive very quickly. And that pattern repeats across cultures, not just one. Historically, Gentiles or non-Israel nations, theologically, in Christianity, the distinction of dissolved through faith. In Judaism, the distinction still exists covenantally, but righteously is not limited to Jews. In modern racial discourse, the term is often interpreted symbolically or politically, but biblically it was never about that. If someone is saying judgment is coming for these people because they are persecuted or they are persecuted the chosen people, that framing shifts the conversation from justice to vengeance. The prophetic message wasn't just about, this race and this other race. But the thing is that when I saw this particular speech from my video, the the whole thing that has happened to, black people over the years indicated what exactly is just written in the Bible. Those people who are going to be judged are the people who are already persecuted, humiliated, just exactly what has been happening over the years. That is why I actually feel that people have this impression that the judgment that is coming is actually going to affect people who are persecuted, the chosen people. And according to the Bible, the Israelites, we all know who are the Israelites, right? So when I saw this particular speech, I decided to just dive into it to know more about what is really going on. But according to the scripture, what has been described is just what is happening right about now. And if we're going to do it in terms of race, it wasn't mentioned in the Bible who, the dark tones or the color of the people, but all of the descriptions in the Bible is exactly what we're just seeing now. Anyway, love listener, just give me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video. Please do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying and harassment. We're just here for educational and informative purposes. So please share this video, subscribe to the channel if you're here to do that. Like and always.
Well, that's it. So let me make a comment right quick, because this is sickening. All of the evil that this white boy and girl have done is over. The world cannot tolerate this shit no more. Yeah, it is about to, and it is vomiting it back up. There's a major earthquake and a volcanic eruption happening throughout Europe, Italy, and Russia. Keep your fucking mouth closed and keep my people's name out of your motherfucking mouth. Because we are the chosen people of God, of the Bible, bitch. The very essence of karma, you're going to feel it. There's no more let my people go. They have been released by the very essence of the spirit of our ancestors. You have fucked up. There's no saving your funky, shitty white asses, pale skin asses. It's over and done. There's nothing that you can do to stop it. And right now, I'm going to go through all these motherfuckers' video displaying the power and might of our ancestors and how it is, why it is that this world that we know up until this very moment, up until this very second is over. There's a reset that is going to happen. Let's get to it.
Oregon seafloor volcano is awakening, and scientists are panicking because what is happening right now should not be possible for another year. Axial Seamount, a volcanic monster the size of Mount Rainier, sits in complete darkness beneath 1 mile of crushing ocean water. For decades, it followed a predictable pattern: inflate slowly, erupt, reset. The cycle took 13 to 15 years like clockwork. But that clock just shattered. Pressure inside Axial Seamount has spiked to 95% inflation, the exact same level that triggered its last massive eruption. Except this time, it is happening 10 months early. The magma is not just building, it is surging. And the scientists who successfully predicted Axial's last eruption are now admitting they do not understand what is Vuelve IA 3 en 4, 4 clases en directo, cero tecnicismos, cero relleno, IA is driving this terrifying acceleration. But here is what has the entire Pacific Northwest bracing for catastrophe. Axial Seamount does not erupt alone. It is connected to the same underground network that feeds every major volcano in the Cascade Range: Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, Mount Shasta. When Axial finally breaks, the energy release could trigger a chain reaction through a 600-mile fault line capable of unleashing a magnitude 9 megaquake. 3 massive earthquakes from across the Pacific have already hammered this volcano in the past 6 months. Each one accelerated the timeline. Each one pushed Axial closer to its breaking point. So what happens when the most monitored underwater volcano in history erupts months ahead of schedule? And if the Pacific Northwest's geological foundation is more connected than anyone realized, what else could this single underwater explosion set in motion?
Now look, you got the axial seamount pressure spike subsurface network, Mount Hood, Mount Rainier, Mount Shasta, and the Yellowstone. Woo! And we're not even talking about the motherfucking fault line in California and the Madrid fault, on which 15 fucking goddamn nuclear power plants are sitting. It's over, you guys. This is not no motherfucking joke. This is not no going back and saying, oh, well, we're talking about 1,000 years from now. Motherfucker, this shit is going to burst wide the fuck open, like I've been saying, by the end of this fucking year. It's less than a year now. Get ready.
December 20th, 2025. Sensors buried beneath 1 mile of Pacific Ocean water transmit readings that send shockwaves through the scientific community. Axial seamounts inflation has reached 95%, the same deadly threshold that preceded its massive 2015 eruption. But the timeline is catastrophically wrong. Chadwick, an Oregon State University geologist who has studied axial for over 3 decades, stares at data that defies everything his research predicted. The volcano was supposed to reach this point in late 2026. Instead, it has arrived 10 months early. The margin of error in his models cannot account for this acceleration. Something fundamental has changed beneath the seafloor. Chadwick's team built their reputation on understanding axial's predictable behavior. The volcano inflates gradually as magma accumulates in its chamber. Pressure builds over years. When inflation reaches approximately 95% of the previous eruption threshold, the system ruptures. Lava pours across the seafloor. The cycle resets. This pattern held for decades. The 1998 eruption followed it. The 2011 eruption confirmed it. In 2015, Chadwick's team used this consistency to issue a public forecast that axial would erupt before year's end. The volcano obliged within days. That predictability made axial the most reliably forecast volcano on Earth. Now that reliability has evaporated completely, current pressure readings show magma accumulating at 4 times the normal rate. Seafloor sensors detect continuous micro-earthquakes rippling through the volcanic edifice. The inflation curve that should climb gradually over years is spiking nearly vertical on monitoring graphs. Every instrument on the seamount confirms the same alarming trend. Chadwick's colleagues at monitoring stations across the Pacific Northwest reviewed the incoming data with growing unease. The models they trusted no longer apply. The timeline they calculated has collapsed. The volcano they thought they understood is behaving in ways that challenge fundamental assumptions about how submarine volcanic systems operate. The magma is not just building anymore. It is surging toward the surface with unprecedented speed. And the scientists who mastered axial's patterns are now admitting a terrifying truth. They do not know what happens next. 300 miles off Oregon's coast lies a volcanic mountain that most Americans have never heard of. Yet axial seamount ranks among the most active and dangerous volcanoes in North America. The reason for its obscurity is simple. It exists in complete darkness beneath nearly a mile of crushing Pacific water. Out of sight, out of mind, but never out of danger. The numbers reveal a geological titan. Axial rises 3,600 feet from the ocean floor. Its volcanic edifice spans an area comparable to Mount Rainier. The summit caldera stretches nearly 2 miles across. Lava flows from previous eruptions blanket the surrounding seafloor for dozens of miles in every direction. This is not just another underwater hill. It is a monster hiding in the abyss. What makes axial particularly dangerous is its location. The volcano sits directly atop the Juan de Fuca Ridge, a tectonic spreading center where new...
When the doors closed last time, people went nuts. By popular demand, we are opening the door.
Oceanic crust continuously forms. Here, the Earth's mantle pushes molten rock upward through cracks in the seafloor. Magma does not arrive in occasional surges. It wells up constantly, feeding a volcanic system that never truly sleeps. Unlike the explosive stratovolcanoes that dominate the Cascade Range on land, axial operates differently. The seamount inflates and deflates like a colossal subterranean lung, breathing molten rock in cycles that scientists tracked for decades. Pressure builds as magma fills the chamber below. The the seafloor swells measurably. Then, eruption releases the accumulated energy. Lava floods across the ocean bottom. The volcano exhales. The cycle begins again. This rhythmic behavior made Axial the most predictable volcano on Earth. Scientists installed extensive monitoring equipment across its summit. Pressure sensors, seismographs, GPS instruments measuring seafloor deformation down to centimeters, and underwater cameras capturing hydrothermal vents in real time. No volcano in history has been more thoroughly wired for observation. That monitoring network was supposed to provide years of warning before the next eruption. Instead, it is now recording an acceleration that defies every model scientists built. The invisible giant is stirring faster than anyone believed possible. July 29, 2025. A massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake strikes off Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula with devastating force. The rupture unleashes seismic waves that race across the Pacific Basin at the speed of a jet airliner. 4,000 miles away, those waves converge on axial seamount. Pressure sensors on the seafloor go haywire. The instruments detect the disturbance even through 1 mile of ocean water. Within hours, earthquakes begin rippling through the volcano's magma chamber. Monitoring stations record inflation rates doubling, then tripling. Scientists watch their data streams with growing alarm. Something has changed deep beneath the seamount. The first blow lands hard, but it is only the beginning. November 2025. A second seismic hammer strikes from 2,400 miles to the south. A 7.9 magnitude earthquake ruptures the Tonga Trench, generating a tsunami that sweeps across the South Pacific. The seismic waves travel through the ocean crust and arrive at Axial with punishing force. The volcano shudders in response. Fresh lava erupts onto the seafloor within days. Underwater cameras capture glowing streams of molten rock spilling from vents that had remained dormant for years. But scientists recognize this activity as merely a prelude. The real danger is building below. By month's end, Axial's inflation rate has quadrupled. Processes that should unfold over years are compressing into weeks. December 8th, 2025. The final trigger strikes closest to home. A swarm of earthquakes rattles the Blanco fracture zone, a fault system slashing across the Juan de Fuca Ridge, just 60 miles from Axial's summit. Seismographs record over 2,000 individual quakes within 24 hours. A dozen exceed magnitude 4.0. The geological assault continues for days. It is the equivalent of a slow-motion hammer blow delivered directly to Axial's foundations. The pattern shatters completely. By December 20th, 2025, inflation tops 95%. The same threshold that triggered the massive 2015 eruption. 3 seismic events from across the Pacific. 6 months of relentless geological assault, and a timeline that has collapsed from years into mere months. May 1933. Inflation tops 95%. The same threshold that triggered the massive 2015 eruption. 3 seismic events from across the Pacific.
Now hold on, this is the ring of fire from here all the way around. That's going to give way to a massive earthquakes, volcanic eruption. It's all connected, you guys. Hold on.
6 months of relentless geological assault, and a timeline that has collapsed from years into mere months.
June 26th is the reported date, but I'm saying by the end of this year.
May 1933. A United States Navy subchaser patrolling off Oregon's coast records something extraordinary in the ship's log. The entry reads simply, "Awakened by a light at 05."
Hold on.
So welcome officially to Colossal Labs. This is the most advanced genetics lab.
500. Picked up several pieces of volcanic rock floating in the water with gaseous bubbles coming from them. That log entry, lost for decades in naval archives, represents the first known record of an eruption at axial seamount. Scientists now believe the 1933 event produced a submarine lava flow that built an underwater plateau larger than San Francisco. The true power of Axial's eruptive cycle remained hidden until modern technology arrived. July 1998. Seafloor seismometers record a massive seismic swarm beneath the seamount. Over 8,000 earthquakes rattle the volcano in just 11 days. Some tremors resonate through the Earth's crust powerfully enough to reach monitoring stations in Idaho. When a remotely operated vehicle visits the site months later, cameras reveal 10-meter-long lava flows blanketing the seafloor. Axial had unleashed a major eruption in complete darkness. The pattern repeated in April 2011. After 13 years of steady inflation, the volcano convulsed again. Earthquakes reached magnitudes up to 4.7. Monitoring equipment captured lava spilling from multiple vents simultaneously. New volcanic mounds towered 300 feet above the surrounding seafloor. The 2011 lava flows covered an area 3 times larger than the 1998 eruption. Then came 2015. On April 23rd, scientists monitoring Axial's inflation recognized the volcano had reached its critical threshold. They issued a public forecast. Axial would erupt before the year ended. The prediction proved accurate within 24 hours. On April 24th, seismographs recorded a magnitude 5.2 earthquake. Then the instruments went silent as lava severed underwater data cables. The volcanic throat had reopened. Each eruption followed a clear pattern. 13 to 15 years of gradual inflation. Predictable pressure buildup. Reliable threshold. Scientists built their models around this consistency. The pattern held for nearly a century. Now that pattern lies in ruins. The cycle that once stretched over a decade has compressed into mere months. The answer to Axial's terrifying acceleration lies deep beneath the seamount's foundations. Scientists examining the volcano's internal structure have discovered a hidden network that changes everything about how they understand the threat. Beneath Axial sprawls an extensive system of subterranean dikes and sills. These are magma-filled cracks that extend for miles through the oceanic crust in every direction. The intrusions do not simply feed Axial's chamber. They connect the seamount to the entire Juan de Fuca Ridge system. When the volcano erupts, it is not just releasing pressure from its own reservoir. It is tapping into a vascular network of molten rock that ties Axial to every major volcano in the Pacific Northwest. The implications are staggering. Imagine an earthquake striking near one of those magmatic veins. The violent shaking dislodges mineral blockages that accumulated over decades. Pathways that were sealed suddenly clear. Pent-up magma that had nowhere to go finds new routes upward. The pressure injection arrives at Axial from sources far beyond the seamount's own footprint. This mechanism explains what scientists observed in 2025. The Kamchatka earthquake did not just send seismic waves across the Pacific. It hammered Axial's subsurface plumbing from 4,000 miles away. The Tonga rupture delivered another blow from the south. The Blanco fracture zone swarm struck from just 60 miles distant. Each event uncorked bottlenecks throughout the underground network. Each one mobilized magma that had been trapped in distant chambers. Axial is no longer inflating through gradual accumulation in its own reservoir. The volcano is being force-fed by seismic stress transferred across the entire Pacific Basin. 3 massive earthquakes, functioning like pressure injections, delivered directly into the volcanic system. The seamount scientists thought operated independently is actually a node in a continental-scale network of molten rock. The magma chambers beneath the Cascade Range share connections with this same system. Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, all drawing from the underground architecture that Axial now reveals. The volcano is not acting alone. It never was. The consequences of Axial's accelerated eruption extend far beyond a patch of seafloor. 600 miles of geological timeline that has collapsed from years into mere months. Presents the first known record of an eruption at Axial. When a remotely operated vehicle visits the site months later, cameras reveal 10-meter-long lava flows, 2011 lava flows, covered an area 3 times the clear.
Here we go.
I joined Christian Cupid because I wanted to find someone who trusted in God.
Clear pattern. 13 to 15 years of gradual inflation. Predictable pressure buildup. Reliable threshold. Scientists built their models around this consistency. The pattern held for nearly a century. Now that pattern lies in ruins. The cycle that once stretched over a decade has compressed into mere months. The answer to Axial's terrifying acceleration lies deep beneath the seamount's foundations. Scientists examining the volcano's internal structure have discovered a hidden network that changes everything about how they understand the threat. Beneath Axial sprawls an extensive system of subterranean dikes and sills. These are magma-filled cracks that extend for miles through the oceanic crust in every direction. The intrusions do not simply feed Axial's chamber. They connect the seamount to the entire Juan de Fuca Ridge system. When the volcano erupts, it is not just releasing pressure from its own reservoir. It is tapping into a vascular network of molten rock that ties Axial to every major volcano in the Pacific Northwest. The implications are staggering. Imagine an earthquake striking near one of those magmatic veins. The violent shaking dislodges mineral blockages that accumulated over decades. Pathways that were sealed suddenly clear. Pent-up magma that had nowhere to go finds new routes upward. The pressure injection arrives at Axial from sources far beyond the seamount's own footprint. This mechanism explains what scientists observed in 2025. The Kamchatka earthquake did not just send seismic waves across the Pacific. It hammered Axial's subsurface plumbing from 4,000 miles away. The Tonga rupture delivered another blow from the south. The Blanco fracture zone swarm struck from just 60 miles distant. Each event uncorked bottlenecks throughout the underground network. Each one mobilized magma that had been trapped in distant chambers. Axial is no longer inflating through gradual accumulation in its own reservoir. The volcano is being force-fed by seismic stress transferred across the entire Pacific Basin. 3 massive earthquakes, functioning like pressure injections, delivered directly into the volcanic system. The seamount scientists thought operated independently is actually a node in a continental-scale network of molten rock. The magma chambers beneath the Cascade Range share connections with this same system. Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, all drawing from the underground architecture that Axial now reveals. The volcano is not acting alone. It never was. The consequences of Axial's accelerated eruption extend far beyond a patch of seafloor. 600 miles of geological...
Now look, this is the ring of fire, you guys. It's going to be one. It's going to be one. It's going to be tens of millions of people who are going to die. The economy of America is going to deflate. Get ready. By the end of this year.
Catastrophe. Wait to be triggered.
Hello? I'm Garlic. People think I work right away.
The Cascadia subduction zone stretches from Northern California to British Columbia. This massive fault marks where the Juan de Fuca plate dives beneath the North American continent. The subduction interface is capable of unleashing magnitude 9 megaquakes that dwarf anything in modern American experience. The last major rupture occurred on January 26, 1700. By historical standards, the fault is overdue for another catastrophic release. Dr. William Wilcock, a University of Washington geophysicist, outlines a chilling scenario. Axial's eruption could trigger earthquakes up and down the subduction zone, not just by transmitting seismic waves through the crust. The eruption could fundamentally alter stress patterns and fluid pressures along the entire fault system. The domino effect begins beneath the seamount. Axial's lateral dikes and sills Rupture during eruption. Shock waves race through the Juan de Fuca plate's brittle crust. Those fractures weaken an already unstable fault system that has been locked in
Now look, Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, Eureka, San Francisco, all that gonna be gone. Not only that, the terrifying earthquake is gonna be pushed into other volcanic eruptions that will trigger the fault line in California. I forget the name of it. That did 50,000 square miles of damage. Not only that, it would trigger the Madrid fault line that did 1 million square miles of damage. And on the Madrid fault line, motherfuckers, there are 15 nuclear power plants. You see how these white boys done fucked us up? You see that?
For over 3 centuries. The subduction interface could uncouple catastrophically. A magnitude 9.3 earthquake would hammer the Pacific coast from California to Canada simultaneously. But the seismic devastation represents only half the threat. The Cascade volcanoes share magmatic connections with Axial through the same underground network. Mount Baker, Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, Mount Shasta all draw power from interconnected magma systems. An eruption at Axial could mobilize molten rock throughout the network. Multiple volcanoes could erupt in a cataclysmic chain reaction. This nightmare scenario is not fantasy. Core samples drilled from Pacific seafloor sediments contain the evidence. Layers of volcanic ash alternate with turbidites, the signature of massive underwater landslides triggered by titanic earthquakes. Those layers appear in rhythmic pulses throughout the past 10,000 years. The catastrophe unfolding around Axial Seamount may be an ancient pattern written into the Earth itself, a pattern now accelerating beyond all predictions. Axial Seamount remains the most instrumented underwater volcano in history. Dozens of sensors carpet the summit caldera, transmitting continuous data through cables that stretch hundreds of miles to shore. Pressure monitors track inflation down to centimeters. Seismographs record every tremor. Temperature probes measure hydrothermal output. Scientists monitor these feeds around the clock, watching for signs of imminent eruption. The 95% inflation threshold looms over every data point. That same level preceded every major eruption in the modern record. 1998, 2011, 2015. Each time Axial reached this pressure, massive lava flows followed within days or weeks. The historical consistency offered comfort. Scientists knew what to expect and when to expect it. That comfort has vanished completely. The timeline compression changes everything about prediction. Models built on 13 to 15-year cycles cannot account for external forcing from distant earthquakes. Remote seismic triggering remains poorly understood. The mechanisms that accelerated Axial's inflation were not part of any forecasting framework. Scientists who successfully predicted the 2015 eruption now admit their methods no longer apply. When will Axial erupt? Days? Weeks? Months? The honest answer is uncertainty. The volcano has entered territory where historical patterns offer no guidance.
It's not years, days, weeks, months.
An eruption would unleash massive lava flows across the seafloor. The summit caldera could partially collapse. Magnitude 5 earthquakes would ripple through the region. Underwater communication cables crossing the Pacific could be severed. Shipping routes might require emergency rerouting. These consequences remain manageable compared to the larger threat. Pacific Northwest emergency managers are reviewing response protocols. Coastal communities are updating evacuation plans for tsunami scenarios. State officials coordinate with federal agencies about potential Cascadia events, but preparing for what exactly remains unclear. The range of possible outcomes spans from isolated seafloor eruption to continental-scale catastrophe. Every sensor reading gets analyzed. Every micro-earthquake cataloged. The volcano that scientists thought they understood now behaves in ways that defy their models. The watching continues. The waiting grows more tense by the hour. The ancient pattern is shattering before our eyes. What should have taken decades is unfolding in months. A volcanic system that scientists studied for generations has suddenly broken free from every predictive model ever built. The rules that governed axial seamount for nearly a century no longer apply. 3 massive earthquakes from across the Pacific Basin delivered hammer blows to a volcano already primed to erupt. The Kamchatka rupture, the Tonga Trench collapse, the Blanco fracture zone swarm. Each event accelerated the timeline. Each one pushed axial closer to its breaking point. The 95% inflation threshold that preceded every modern eruption has been reached 10 months ahead of schedule. The magma is not building gradually anymore. It is surging toward the surface with unprecedented speed. But the true terror lies not—
Now look, Mount St. Helens, Mount Hood, Mount Jefferson, Three Sisters, Newberry, Crater Lake, and all the other ones you mentioned. Guys.
not in what axial will do alone. The seamount is connected to a continental-scale network of molten rock that feeds every major volcano in the Cascade Range. Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, Mount Shasta, all share the same underground architecture. When axial finally breaks, the energy release could propagate through interconnected magma chambers like electrical current through a circuit. The Cascadia subduction zone waits in the shadows. 600 miles of locked fault line, capable of unleashing magnitude 9 megaquakes. The last catastrophic rupture occurred over 3 centuries ago. Core samples from the seafloor reveal this disaster has repeated in rhythmic pulses throughout the past 10,000 years. Volcanic ash layers alternate with the signatures of massive underwater landslides triggered by titanic earthquakes. The evidence suggests that what we are witnessing is not an anomaly. It is an ancient cycle written into the earth itself. The most monitored underwater volcano in history is screaming a warning from the abyss. Scientists who successfully predicted Axial's last eruption now admit they do not understand the new timeline. The models they trusted have failed. The patterns they relied upon have collapsed. Every sensor on the seamount confirms the same alarming trend. Pressure building. Earthquakes multiplying. Inflation climbing toward critical levels. 300 miles off the Oregon coast, in complete darkness beneath 1 mile of crushing Pacific water, a geological monster stirs. The volcano best positioned to light the fuse sits alone on the abyssal plain, invisible to the surface world, but connected to everything that threatens to reshape the Pacific Northwest forever. The questions that remain have no comfortable answers. Will Axial's eruption stay buried beneath the waves as previous events did? Or will this accelerated timeline trigger the cascade that scientists have feared for decades? Is the Pacific Northwest witnessing an isolated volcanic event? Or the opening sequence of a geological catastrophe that could affect millions? The climate crisis taught humanity that Earth's systems are more interconnected than anyone imagined. Now the geological crisis is delivering the same brutal lesson. 1 mile beneath the Pacific Ocean, the clock is ticking faster than any model predicted. The countdown has begun, and no one knows exactly when it reaches zero.
Wow. So we are here now. Oh, shit, I don't have... Is that 3 minutes? Or is that 3 hours? Oh, that's just 3 hours. Okay, so look, I'm going to, yeah, this is... I didn't see it. I thought it was 3 minutes long. Okay. So I'm going to put this in the comments in case people want to watch it. This is beyond your wildest fucking imagination. So we're going to eliminate that one. But the worse than Yellowstone, NASA detects activity at the world's most dangerous peak. I don't know what to tell you. The only thing I can tell you is that get ready. I'm praying for you, for my people in America. Because if you're just sitting up here thinking you're okay, you're not okay. And so the new Madrid earthquake, you guys, we're going to take a look at that. And I'll be right back.
2:15 in the morning. You know what happens in this exact second. The asphalt beneath your feet, solid, dependable asphalt, turns into something closer to tar, left out in the July sun. Black sludge. Concrete bridges don't fall. They snap, midair, like dry twigs under a boot. Skyscrapers. They don't tip over in some dramatic movie fashion. No, they sink, straight down, like the planet just swallowed them. In the Mississippi, the great river that cuts this country clean in half, stops flowing south. It reverses. Welcome to a scenario that makes nuclear war look like a fender bender. And here's the part that should keep you up at night. This isn't some Hollywood pitch meeting. This is the weather forecast. For tomorrow. Now, it all starts with the water. In 1 second, the riverbed takes a hit from below. A giant fist punching upward from the center of the earth. The water doesn't ripple. It jumps, 5 stories high. A wall of mud, foam, and the corpses of catfish the size of dogs. The inertia of billions of tons of moving water just breaks.
Men over 60 should not be running, lifting, or crunching. There's a smarter way. It's called chair Tai Chi.
Make it a habit.
Hold on.
7 minutes of muscle-saving chair.
And then the river turns around. It flows backward. There are cargo barges out there. Dozens of them. Steel boxes the size of football fields. The water rips them from their anchors and hurls these things through downtown Memphis like a toddler throwing Lego blocks. The river doesn't overflow. It falls onto the city. 1 instant blow. But water's just the opening act. Look at your feet. Right now, beneath Memphis, there's a geological nightmare waiting to wake up. A giant sponge made of sand and water. When the shaking starts, the earth stops being solid. The ground becomes soup. You're standing in a parking lot. You blink. The asphalt beneath you is suddenly liquid. Cars start to sink. First the wheels, then the doors, then the roof. The planet just sucks them down like a kid with a milkshake. In the buildings, the famous pyramid in Memphis, that steel and glass giant. It tilts, slowly, with this terrible grinding sound, and it goes into the soil, like the Titanic sliding into the Atlantic. People are inside. You're in your office. The floor under your feet suddenly stands on end. Everything slides into one corner. You try to reach the exit. Can't. The first floor is already 20 feet underground. You're walled in. Alive. A concrete coffin with no way out. You think it can't get worse? Add fire. When the earth turns to sludge, gas pipes snap. In 1,000 places. All at once. Gas erupts. Fills basements. Floods sewers. The entire city is now sitting on top of one enormous gas burner. All it takes is one spark. Boom. Streets become corridors of flame. People who clawed their way out of sinking buildings stumble into an oven. Firefighters won't come. Their stations are underground. The roads are rivers of mud. You're trapped. Below you, liquid earth. Above you, fire. Now, zoom out. You live in New York? Los Angeles? You're thinking, that's Memphis's problem. Wrong. Right through this disaster zone runs the Capline pipeline, America's oil vein. Picture an endless convoy of tanker trucks, bumper to bumper, from New York to Los Angeles. That's how much black gold moves through this pipe every day. The pipe bursts. Black crude gushes into the Mississippi. The river gets coated in oil 6 inches deep. And this oil catches fire. A burning river flows south, incinerating ports, melting bridges. The country's economy on its knees in 1 hour. Food, medicine, gasoline, all of it moves through Memphis. That hub just vanished. In 3 days, the shelves in your grocery store are empty. Hunger spreads. To you. Let's make it scarier. Imagine this happens in winter. The gas pipelines that heat Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, they all pass through here. They're destroyed. Up north, radiators go cold. It's 4 degrees below zero outside. The electricity, gone. Millions of people sit in darkness, in cold. The roads are gone. The bridges are gone. People freeze to death in their beds, not understanding why nobody's coming. But cold is a slow death. There's a fast one. Nuclear power plants in the impact zone. When the power goes out, reactors need coolant. Otherwise, meltdown. Backup generators have fuel for 48 hours. After that, you need to truck in diesel. How? No bridges, no railroads, no roads. Fuel tankers sit on the other side of a destroyed river, watching the clock tick down. 48 hours pass. The generators die. Inside the reactor, hell wakes up. Fuel rods melt into radioactive lava. It burns through steel, concrete, earth, reaches the groundwater. Radioactive steam explodes into the sky. The wind carries it east, toward your city. You won't see it, won't smell it, won't know it's there until your teeth start falling out. An exclusion zone in the heart of America, for centuries. Engineers planned for this, you say. Here's the thing about the new Madrid fault line. It doesn't kill quickly. It tortures. In 1811, there wasn't one earthquake here. There were 4. You survive the first hit. Crawl out from the rubble, bleeding, broken, alive. 6 hours later, the earth strikes again, finishes off the survivors. A month passes. You're in a tent, among ruins. You think it's over. 3rd hit, even more powerful. People's minds break. The ground shakes constantly, for weeks. Back then, it was farmers and log cabins. Today, it's megacities, millions of people stacked on top of each other. Scientists say there's a 10% chance of this happening in the next 50 years. Doesn't sound scary? Let me put it another way. Here's a revolver, 10 chambers, 1 bullet. I'm putting this gun to your head. Would you pull the trigger for $1 million? No, you wouldn't. Life's too precious. But we're all playing this game right now. For free. 15 million people go to sleep every night with this gun aimed at their temple. The hammer's cocked. The spring has been compressing for 214 years. And when it snaps, you won't be able to call your mom and say goodbye. There won't be a signal. There won't be time. There will only be darkness. Did you get scared for Memphis? Don't waste the emotion. Memphis is just the first name on a list. In America, there are 5 great cities destined to vanish from the face of the earth by 2050. Not maybe, not probably, definitely. Some will drown, others will burn. One will simply fall into a hole in the ground. And statistically, you either live in one of them, or you're planning to move there. In the next video, I'm revealing the Death Map 2050, a secret list of cities you need to run from before property values crash to zero and insurance companies pull out. Subscribe, hit the bell, save yourself and your money while there's still time. See you in the next...
Alright, so we're rolling it on down, and a lot of these are kind of quick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play the longer one. This one doesn't count. This one, I'm going to leave because I'm looking for Amazing Lucas. So I'm going to keep that there. But this one, this is 30 minutes. And I appreciate whoever is here. Because we're going to get really deep into this one. And I will be right back.
Scientists published the definitive analysis of an event that shook one of the most visited places on Earth. And what they found, buried in the data changes, everything we thought we knew about the hidden threat lurking beneath the Mediterranean. The volcano. The world doesn't know about is already waking up. 7 kilometers from Santorini, 500 meters beneath the surface of the Aegean Sea. A volcano called Colombo has been quietly filling with magma for the last 375 years. No headlines, no warning signs visible from the beach, no postcards, just molten rock accumulating in the dark, year after year, at a rate of 4 million cubic meters per year. That is the equivalent of 500,000 Olympic swimming pools of magma, and it has been growing since 1650. Most people who have ever set foot on Santorini have never heard its name, but scientists have. And on February 17th, 2026, the Geomar Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research published the definitive study of what just happened beneath these waters. What they confirmed is more alarming than anything the monitoring systems were designed to track. This is not background noise. This is a system in motion. To understand the scale of what scientists are now confronting, you have to begin 6 months before the first earthquake. You have to go back to July 2024. Because the crisis that terrified Greece in January 2025 did not begin in January. It began months earlier, in silence, beneath an island full of tourists sipping wine above a caldera. In July 2024, instruments at GPS monitoring stations on Santorini recorded something subtle. The island was swelling. Centimeter by centimeter, the surface was pushing upward. Satellite interferometry confirmed it. The Santorini caldera was inflating, slowly, as magma crept from the middle crust up into a shallow reservoir below the island. No earthquakes, no visible signs, no public announcement. No one noticed. The system was pressurizing for 6 full months before the first crack. Then, on January 27th, 2025, at 19:00 UTC, the seafloor northeast of Santorini began to shake. A low-magnitude tremor. Barely felt at first, but within an hour, instruments were registering something different. Not the isolated pop of a single fault. A swarm. A relentless, multiplying cascade of seismic events that intensified through the night. By midnight, more than 150 small quakes had struck. By the following morning, the number was in the thousands. Within 30 days, instruments had recorded more than 28,000 seismic events. The strongest exceeded magnitude 5.0. Buildings cracked, glass rattled off shelves, and the question that hung over every government briefing, every emergency meeting, every conversation between scientists and civil protection officials was the same one. Was this tectonic, or was it volcanic? The distinction is the difference between a geological tremor and the opening act of an eruption. The Greek government did not wait for a definitive answer. On February 6, 2025, a state of emergency was declared across Santorini and the surrounding islands. Schools closed in Santorini, Anafi, Ios, and Amorgos simultaneously. 11,000 residents evacuated. Rescue teams from the Greek EMAK unit deployed to the island. Authorities issued an advisory that had never been issued before in this region, one that captured just how uncertain and dangerous the moment felt. Drain your swimming pools. The weight of the water above foundations, they warned, could destabilize buildings if the shaking continued. 2/3 of the island's nearly 16,000 permanent residents fled. But tourists kept arriving. That detail is not a footnote. It is the clearest possible illustration of how invisible this threat remains to the world watching from a distance. An island under a state of emergency. An island from which thousands of residents were evacuating. And tourists were still walking off the ferries with luggage, still booking sunset dinner reservations, still photographing the caldera from the cliff tops. A local real estate agent, who asked not to be identified, told journalists during that period that volcanic activity never enters the conversation when selling a property on the island. That is the world that Colombo operates in, a world that doesn't know it exists. For the scientists watching the data in real time, those weeks were among the most tense in the modern history of Mediterranean volcanology. Because the earthquake swarm was doing something puzzling, the quakes were not clustering beneath Santorini. They were moving, migrating away from the island, northeast, offshore, into the Aegean. They clustered along a fault zone that did not sit beneath any volcano on the standard monitoring maps. Marius Isken, a geophysicist at the GFZ Helmholtz Center for Geosciences in Potsdam, Germany, and lead author of the Nature study, described the uncertainty directly. There was a probability, he said, that the magma would reach the surface offshore, which meant there was a possibility of explosive activity. Not a certainty, not a guarantee, but a real instrument-confirmed probability. The implication? A volcanic eruption in shallow open water, 7 kilometers from one of the most photographed islands on Earth. What saved the analysis was timing. Just weeks before the crisis began, the Multi-Marex project, a German-Greek interdisciplinary research initiative, had deployed a fresh set of ocean bottom sensors inside Colombo's crater. Not near the crater, inside it, placed on the seafloor directly above the volcanic reservoir, measuring both seismic signals and pressure changes in real time. Those instruments had been in place for less than a month when the swarm began. Without them, the most important discovery of this crisis would never have been made. And Jens Carstens, marine geophysicist at GeoMar and co-lead author of the study, was there. Not in Kiel, not in a control room in Germany. He was in Santorini, on the island, for routine follow-up fieldwork, sitting in a hotel room above a system that was fracturing beneath him. Every 6 hours, he received artificial intelligence-processed seismic data sent by his colleague Isken. An AI pipeline, designed at the GFZ using a model called PhaseNet, was automatically analyzing the incoming swarm data, detecting and locating thousands of earthquakes per day with a precision that no human team could match manually. From a hotel room on Santorini, a scientist watched 300 million cubic meters of magma move through the crust of the Earth in near real time. Let that image settle. Every 6 hours, Carstens received a new update. Every 6 hours, the picture got clearer and more alarming. If you want to be the kind of person who gets the update before everyone else, subscribe now. Because this story is still moving underground, and so is this channel. Because what those instruments and that AI confirmed is the discovery that the February 2026 GeoMar study published this week as definitive. A sheet of magma, a dike, had begun propagating laterally through the mid-crust starting at 18 kilometers depth. Not from beneath Santorini, from beneath Colombo, the hidden volcano, the submarine seamount sitting 7 kilometers offshore that barely registers on most hazard maps and almost no one in the general public can identify by name. That dike grew to 13 kilometers in length. To put that distance in human terms, it is the length of Manhattan from its southern tip to Harlem. A blade of molten rock, 13 kilometers long, forcing its way through ancient stone, fracturing layers of crust, reactivating old faults, generating 28,000 earthquakes as it moved. It carried approximately 300 million cubic meters of magma. It stalled at 4 kilometers beneath the seafloor. This time. But what happened to both volcanoes simultaneously as that dike moved is the revelation that the science had never documented before in a system like this. As the dike propagated, the ocean bottom sensors recorded what volcanologists described as the smoking gun. The seafloor above Colombo's magma chamber sank. 30 centimeters, the chamber was deflating, draining its own magma supply into the dike as it advanced. And at the same moment, Santorini also began to subside. The inflation that had been building since July 2024 reversed. The island sank back down. Both volcanoes, simultaneously, responded to the same movement from the same source. Scientists interpret this as proof of a previously unknown hydraulic connection between Santorini and Colombo at depth. 2 separate volcanoes, 2 separate craters. 2 volcanoes that all prior models treated as largely independent systems. One shared magmatic heart. National Geographic described it in terms that are worth hearing directly. They are 2 aortas attached at depth to a hidden magmatic circulatory system. When that system moves, both of them move. When it drains, both of them sink. When it pressurizes, the earthquakes come. And when it pressurizes enough, something else entirely happens. This discovery has implications that reach far beyond Greece. Scientists note that shared and coupled magmatic plumbing systems are now suspected to exist beneath other major volcanic fields around the world. Hawaii, Iceland, the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia. If 2 volcanoes as close and as well studied as Santorini and Colombo maintained a hidden deep connection that went unconfirmed until a crisis made it visible, then the same situation almost certainly exists at other sites where the instruments have not yet been deployed and where the crisis has not yet arrived. The science of volcano monitoring just changed. because the old model assumed you watched the visible volcano. The 2025 crisis proved that the trigger can come from a different volcano entirely. Now consider what scientists already knew about Colombo before January 2025 even started. In October 2022, a team from Imperial College London published a landmark study using a technique called full waveform inversion. Think of it as a medical ultrasound applied to the Earth's crust. Instead of imaging tissue and bone, it images seismic wave velocities passing through rock. Where velocities slow down dramatically, you are looking at fluid, you are looking at melt, you are looking at magma. The Imperial College team used this technique on Colombo's subsurface and produced the highest resolution image ever taken of what lies beneath the seamount. What they found inside that image was a magma chamber that no prior survey had detected. A body of 1.4 cubic kilometers of mobile melt, sitting between 2 to 4 kilometers below the seafloor, growing at 4 million cubic meters per year since the last eruption in 1650. The researchers noted something critical about that growth rate. It is large enough to counteract the effects of cooling and crystallization. The magma is not just sitting there slowly hardening. It is accumulating faster than it can solidify. The chamber is genuinely growing. At that rate, within 150 years, Colombo's magma chamber will return to the volume it held just before the 1650 eruption. The eruption breached the sea surface and exploded into open air. The eruption generated a tsunami that crashed across the Aegean with wave run-up heights of 20 meters on the southern coast of Ios. Inundation reached 240 meters inland on the island of Sikanos. Flooding covered up to 2 square kilometers of the eastern coast of Santorini. An eruption killed at least 50 to 70 people, many of them from toxic gases released by the volcano before a single wave reached the shore. That eruption also built a volcanic cone the size of a small mountain in just 2 weeks. Eyewitness accounts from the 17th century describe it rising from the sea. Then it sank back beneath the waves and disappeared, as if it had never existed. The researchers who published the 2022 magma chamber study described the style of a potential future eruption as comparable to Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai. Not a distant analogy, a direct comparison in mechanism and environment. Hunga Tonga was a shallow submarine volcano. Colombo is a shallow submarine volcano. Hunga Tonga generated a shock wave that circled the planet multiple times and was recorded by weather stations in every country on Earth. It triggered tsunamis that reached the shores of North America, Japan, and Peru from the South Pacific. It injected water vapor into the stratosphere at levels that disrupted global climate measurements. Colombo sits at 500 meters depth. The 2022 study stated explicitly that this shallow depth would significantly enhance the explosivity of any future eruption. The interface between magma and seawater at that depth creates conditions for what volcanologists call rhetomagmatic explosions, where seawater contacts molten rock and flashes violently into superheated steam, amplifying the force of the blast by orders of magnitude. And Colombo is not 10,000 kilometers from a population center. It is 7 kilometers from one. Now, layer in the human reality above this system. Santorini receives approximately 3.5 million tourists per year. The island has one main port. One primary road runs along the caldera rim. A resident population of nearly 16,000, spread across villages that cling to the inner walls of an ancient volcanic crater. There is no dedicated volcanic evacuation infrastructure designed for a Colombo origin event. The emergency plans that existed in January 2025, the ones that guided the state of emergency declaration and the school closures and the pool draining advisories, were not written with Colombo in mind as the primary trigger. They were written with Santorini's visible surface system as the reference point. The 2025 crisis revealed that the primary trigger may not come from that system at all. It may come from 7 kilometers offshore, from a volcano most of the world has never heard of, from a vent that sits below 500 meters of water, invisible from any beach, invisible from any cliff, invisible from any hotel terrace where someone is watching the sunset and thinking this is the most beautiful place they have ever seen. The hazard assessment published for Colombo in 2024 identified 4 categories of threat from a future eruption: toxic gases, ashfall, pyroclastic flows, and tsunami generation. All 4 of these occurred in 1650. All 4 are physically plausible again today. The toxic gas threat alone is particularly alarming in the context of a tourist population that has no baseline awareness that a submarine volcano even exists nearby. In 1650, people on Santorini died from volcanic gas before the first wave arrived. They did not know where the gas was coming from because they could not see the source. That situation has not changed. The northwestern flank of Colombo carries an additional threat that the 2025 crisis did not trigger, but did not eliminate. Studies of the 1650 eruption have established that approximately 1.2 cubic kilometers of Colombo's northwestern flank underwent a massive downward movement during that event, dropping 500 to 1,000 meters along a basal detachment surface. That flank collapse depressurized the magma system and directly triggered the explosive eruption that followed. Numerical tsunami simulations, published by Karstens and colleagues, showed that the historical eyewitness accounts of wave run-up heights can only be reproduced if the flank collapse and the eruption happened in sequence. The tsunami was not just caused by the explosion. It was caused by the collapse of a volcano's own wall into the sea first. That flank is still there. And the 2025 dike intrusion confirmed that this system is actively moving. The mid-crustal reservoir beneath Colombo is connected to the dike pathway that already ran to within 4 kilometers of the seafloor. The dike stalled because it ran out of momentum and buoyancy, but the reservoir is still being replenished from below. The February 2026 GeoMar study confirmed this explicitly. Gas flux measurements at Nia Kameni on Santorini remain elevated above 2024 baselines. Magma is still being supplied from depth. Both volcanoes are still replenishing. The feeding pulse that triggered 28,000 earthquakes has not reversed. It has paused. And then there is the deeper geological context that most coverage of Santorini never reaches. Because Colombo and Santorini do not sit in isolation. They sit within the Hellenic volcanic arcs, a 1,500-kilometer chain of volcanoes created by the subduction of the African plate beneath the Eurasian plate. The arc runs through some of the most densely populated and most seismically active terrain in the world. In 1956, 2 earthquakes of magnitude 7.4 and 7.2 struck the southern Aegean Sea between Santorini and Amorgos, just 13 minutes apart, and triggered a tsunami. In 1600 BCE, the Minoan eruption of the Santorini caldera, one of the largest volcanic events of the entire Holocene, reshaped the Mediterranean, generated tsunamis that devastated coastlines across the eastern basin, and contributed to the collapse of the Minoan civilization on Crete. Scientists estimate the total volume of material ejected at approximately 60 cubic kilometers. The ash fallout reached Egypt, the Levant, and Anatolia. That eruption was from the same caldera system that Santorini's villages now ring. The deep geological pipes beneath this region are not quiet. They have never been quiet. They produced one of the most catastrophic events in human prehistory. They produced the 1650 Colombo tsunami. They produced the 1956 earthquake pair. They produced the 28,000 earthquake swarm of 2025. And they are currently producing, at a rate of 4 million cubic meters per year, the next chapter of what this system is capable of. Now return to the February 17th, 2026 GeoMar study, published this week, and consider what it confirms in full. 2 factors made the level of detail in this study possible. The first was the AI pipeline developed at GFZ, called QSeek, built on the PhaseNet machine learning model, capable of automatically detecting and precisely locating thousands of earthquakes per day in real time. Without AI, the resolution of the earthquake catalog would have been too coarse to reconstruct the dike's path through the crust with the precision the study achieved. The second was the Multimerix ocean bottom sensors deployed inside Colombo's crater in early January 2025, just days before the crisis began. Those sensors recorded the seismic signals and the pressure drop as the seafloor above the deflating reservoir compressed downward by up to 32 centimeters. If the Multimerix deployment had been scheduled for March instead of January, those sensors would not have been there. The connection between the two volcanoes might not have been detected. The definitive analysis published this week might have concluded that the 2025 crisis was a complex tectonic event with volcanic overtones, not the first confirmed real-time observation of a coupled magmatic system producing a lateral dike injection between two explosive volcanoes. The most important volcanic discovery in this region in decades was separated from scientific invisibility by a matter of weeks. There are currently 8 GeoMars seabed sensor platforms operating in the Santorini-Colombo region tonight. GFZ is conducting ongoing gas and temperature measurements on Santorini's surface. Satellite interferometry continues to monitor ground deformation across the caldera and the surrounding seafloor. The Santori Observatory, the Santorini Seafloor Volcanic Observatory, is moving toward full operational status, a network of permanent underwater instruments designed to provide continuous monitoring of Colombo's activity across all relevant parameters simultaneously. But here is what that monitoring architecture does not change. The 1.4 cubic kilometers of magma already confirmed inside Colombo's chamber in 2022 has continued growing. The deep reservoir that fed the 2025 dike is still being replenished from the mantle. The flank that collapsed in 1650 is still there. The 3.5 million tourists who pass through Santorini every year still do not know that a volcano sits 7 kilometers offshore. The real estate market on Santorini still does not factor volcanic risk into property conversations, and the world's hazard maps still do not show Colombo with the same warning colors as the volcanoes people can see. The volcanologist Paraskevi Nomikou grew up in Santorini. She is one of the lead researchers on the Colombo monitoring effort and a co-author of the studies that have redefined what we understand about this system. She remembers her grandfather and great-grandfather telling her, from the time she was a child, that the volcano to fear was not the one you could see. The visible caldera of Santorini, they said, was not the real danger. The danger was the one hiding beneath the water. Gradually, over years of research, diving expeditions, acoustic surveys, and the deployment of instruments no previous generation of scientists had access to, she came to understand exactly what they meant. Her grandfather was right. Colombo has been silent for 375 years. But silence, the data now confirms at the highest level of scientific certainty available, is not inactivity. The crater floor of Colombo holds active hydrothermal vents. It holds sulfide chimneys 6 meters tall, precipitating gold and silver from superheated fluid rising from the volcanic rock below. The conditions at the bottom of Colombo's crater so closely resemble what scientists expect to find on the ocean moons of Jupiter and Saturn that NASA sent an expedition there in 2019 to test deep space exploration vehicles in an extraterrestrial analog environment. The agency described the inside of Colombo's crater as an ocean with life that may resemble what exists on other planets. NASA sent submarines here to prepare for other worlds. If that detail alone doesn't deserve a like on this video, nothing does. That crater is alive. The system feeding it is alive. The connection to Santorini is alive and confirmed. And the magma that moved beneath the Aegean Sea in January 2025, 300 million cubic meters of it, pushing through 13 kilometers of fractured crust from a depth of 18 kilometers, stalling just 4 kilometers below the water, generating 28,000 earthquakes as it went, is the clearest signal this system has produced in 4 centuries. It was enough to shut down schools, enough to drain swimming pools, enough to evacuate 11,000 people, enough to trigger a state of emergency, enough to send a marine geophysicist to his hotel room to read AI-processed earthquake data every 6 hours, while the ground shook beneath him. And it was not an eruption. It was not even close to the surface. It was a rehearsal. The question the February 2026 study does not answer, because no instrument yet built can answer it, is when the next movement begins. Whether the next dike will carry more volume. Whether it will find a more direct pathway to the shallow seafloor. whether the flank above a deflating Colombo reservoir might begin to destabilize under the pressure changes that accompany a major injection, whether the next crisis will give scientists the same weeks of AI-processed warning they had in 2025, or whether it will move faster, or from a different direction, along a pathway that current monitoring has not yet mapped. What the science can say, with the confidence of peer review and Nature publication, and the data from 28,000 earthquakes and 8 ocean bottom platforms and satellite interferometry and gas flux measurements and full waveform magma imaging, is this. 8 monitoring platforms are listening to the seafloor tonight. We want to know if you are listening too. Drop a comment. Did you know Colombo existed before this video? Because most people who visit Santorini still don't. This system is active. This system is coupled. This system is replenishing from depth. And this system sits beneath 3.5 million tourists who have never heard the name of the volcano that matters most. 8 monitoring platforms are operational on the seafloor tonight. The AI is processing. The gas readings are elevated. And scientists at GeoMar and GFZ and the University of Athens are watching, in near real time, for the next signal from a magmatic heart that the world has spent 375 years pretending was asleep. The only question is when it sends one they cannot stop.
Wow. Before I continue, I just want to make a comment. I appreciate for whoever was watching and who will be watching this show that this is beyond your wildest imagination. We're at the breaking point. The world is about to reset. All right. And so now, hold on. Just a minute. We're going to go 17 and 22. It's a Super Bowl volcano under Naples. We already did that one, so I'm going to put that in a comment. And what that means, I don't want to be repetitive. The super volcano is cracking under Naples. Okay, so we're getting it down to virtually nothing. And so we're going to cover these. This one is, hold on. This one is something that I found to be very interesting. Whatever, not whoever, but whatever built this never turned it off. Hold on. I just found it interesting. We're going to see what it's all about. I'll be right back.
Extinction usually leaves silence. Ruins collapse. Systems fail. Machines stop. But this place never went quiet. Long before humanity reached deep space, another intelligence existed here. They built structures across the stars, precise, immense, and deliberate. And then they vanished. No final message, no warning, just absence. What remained were these machines, standing where their makers once stood, still powered, still aligned, still active. From a distance, these structures resemble monuments, but monuments are designed to be seen, not to function. As I move closer, patterns begin to emerge. Energy conduits still glow faintly beneath stone-like surfaces. Internal systems cycle with mechanical precision. This isn't decay, this is maintenance. Whoever built this did not intend it to be temporary. These machines were designed to outlive their creators. Abandoned technology behaves differently. It corrodes. It fails unevenly. It collapses under entropy. This place hasn't collapsed. It has endured. Which raises a difficult question. Why would a civilization on the brink of extinction invest so much effort into keeping their machines alive? Perhaps these structures were never meant to be ruins. Perhaps they were meant to wait. If so, then extinction wasn't an accident. It was a decision.
Now, I brought that up because in Africa, there was a channel on YouTube called Supreme African Breaking News where they discussed the ancient machinery and technology that the African had. I hate the fact that YouTube took it down because I was really getting into it, and the vast majority of my time doing my podcast was based on that. If this is true, and I want to send it to Traore right now to find out about it, or at least mention it. Traore. Hold on, let me try to find. I know I'm following him, so. That was it. And so now we're going to go into Hillary. It's only 2 minutes long. And the last one is 22 minutes long. I feel good. I don't feel tired. I am getting tired. But I don't feel the weight of it. So we're going to run these down, and I'll be right back.
About Epstein at the conference?
Friends and Madam Secretary, I'd like to ask you, I'm the mother of a daughter, and it absolutely horrifies me to see what the Epstein files have brought out. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, what does it say about Western values when Western leaders have perpetuated and participated in these horrific abuses of minors and girls?
Thank you very much. We have gone everywhere from New Start to Epstein. Yeah, I heard 3 in particular. To the last question, it's horrifying, and we're hoping that there will be continued release every day that passes. That doesn't mean, as our news commentators say every day in the United States, that because someone's name is there, they committed a crime. But I think there's a lot of very troubling and really horrific information coming out. Today came out that Steve Bannon was trying to get Jeffrey Epstein to help him overthrow Pope Francis. I guess that was part of the civilizational true conservatism. So it is something that needs to be totally transparent. I've called for many years for everything to be put out there so people can not only see what is in them, but also, if appropriate, hold people accountable. We'll see what happens. On the New START treaty, which we were the...
Man. Yep, there you go. This is a mail about Hillary from 2013. Could you organize a discreet meeting between Sarko and Hillary Clinton in New York? If not, who should we ask? What the fuck? Meetings with Hillary are not easily discreet. When? And this is from Jeffrey Epstein. Oh boy. And Hillary Clinton, I'll sacrifice a chicken in the backyard to Moloch. Wait, what is this here? With fingers crossed, the old rabbit's foot out of the box in the attic, I will be sacrificing a chicken in the backyard to Moloch. And that was from Hillary Clinton? Bill and Hillary Clinton will be testifying in front of Congress regarding Jeffrey Epstein on February 26th and 27th. And I find it to be funny is that they said they weren't going to do it, then they didn't. It's almost like the same thing that I've said 1,000 times is true. People respond to incentives. The moment that you put something in front of somebody and they say, oh shit, my life is going to get fucked up if I don't do this, suddenly, now everything changes and they want to play ball. Wow, what a surprise.
I can turn your wildest ideas into a song. Just describe it in a few words. Choose a style, and let Mareka V.
So that's the great detail about Hillary Clinton. She's knee deep to a gopher's ass in this shit. I've read and seen where she'd taken the literal life or skin, the literal skin from a dead girl and applied it to her own face. And Aberdeen, who was the ex-wife of the senator known as the Slong Dong or Long Slong or whatever the fuck it is, I don't know. And it's a hot mess. So, but we're down to the last bit here, and I'll be right back.
Sierras has all the high drama. Scientists are sounding alarms up and down California's seaboard. A single minute ago, the coastline along the Pacific did not look as it does now. In that brief spell, far too short for any evacuation or revised forecast, entire stretches of California's iconic shoreline have buckled unexpectedly, yielding beneath the violent rush of ocean waves. This is a crisis unfolding in real time, not the distant threat once debated in scientific journals or city council meetings, but an immediate catastrophe, with impacts neither planners nor residents can ignore. Streets, once believed immune to the sea, are now submerged beneath churning foam. Concrete seawalls, erected to withstand the fiercest Pacific storms, have failed against monster waves that show no sign of relenting. The sounds are unmistakable, the deep, concussive pound of ocean surges against the earth. A percussive violence, rattling windows, and shaking the assurance of entire communities. Emergency alerts flash urgently in every seaside city, their warnings racing to keep ahead of rising water and sudden land collapse. In La Jolla, Pacifica, Newport Beach, names known globally for their beauty and seeming stability, residents look on in disbelief as properties, piers, and even playgrounds are reshaped or reclaimed by advancing surf. This is not just another seasonal storm. Scientists monitoring the coastline describe a convergence of unprecedented dangers, monster waves breaking above any recent memory, relentless storm surges pushing seawater far inland, and a disturbing, previously overlooked factor that multiplies every hazard. The land itself is quietly sinking. Ground once assumed stable is shifting and settling beneath the compounded weight of natural forces. The peril is immediate and deeply personal. Families are fleeing not just high water, but the vanishing security of land beneath their feet. How could California's coastline collapse so suddenly? Why is this particular event spiraling beyond anything in recent memory? The visible destruction, roaring surf swallowing whole blocks and breaching every line of defense, is just a part of a deeper and more complex emergency. Scientists, engineers, and emergency managers now warn that beneath the dramatic images of breached seawalls and flooded homes, invisible forces are accelerating the disaster. The threat is not only from above, but from below. Each storm surge and every monster wave is undermining the very foundations of the coast, triggering the silent but relentless process of land subsidence. As residents frantically seek safety within redrawn evacuation zones, the true story is that of the ground itself giving way, challenging the stability of once secure communities. In the gap between immediate consequence and unsettling cause, one question lingers. What set this collapse in motion? And why are old assumptions about California's coastal safety suddenly insufficient? For years, mention of the so-called sleeping giant offshore, a rare alignment of ocean energy and geological instability, has been confined to specialist conferences and scientific models. Now, new sensor data leaves no room for doubt. Dr. Ye Ling Ma, a leading expert from the Pacific Coastal Monitoring Network, notes that the land itself is moving down. What alarms us most isn't merely the power of the recent waves, but how their force is amplified as the ground beneath us becomes more and more unstable. Monster swell, storm surge, and the shifting earth. This is a disaster made far worse by their confluence. Each surge does more than briefly flood. Each wave strips away what little stability remains. compounding previous damage until thresholds are irreversibly crossed. At Scripps Pier, real-time data is reporting waves far higher than normal, an extreme event becoming undeniable for California's most cherished coastline. Warning sirens are no longer speculative. New sea level records are already being registered, not as future possibilities, but as unfolding realities. What is happening beneath the waves, unseen but powerful? How much more can California's coast endure before collapse becomes irreversible? California's iconic shoreline has long stood as a symbol of permanence, a vital margin between civilization and the restless Pacific. Yet this boundary is being redrawn with startling speed. From San Diego to Santa Monica and onward to Northern California, a stream of urgent reports converges. City streets charged by surging waves, harbors breached, evacuation routes erased. Local news helicopters capture images few believed possible. Homes teetering on fractured bluffs, patios crumbling into the tides below, boardwalks and piers broken in a single turn of the tide. But perhaps the most sobering alarms do not blare from sirens or broadcast images. Instead, they come from instruments buried deep beneath sand and salt marsh. Dr. Ye-Ling Ma and her research colleagues have tracked California's coastal risks for years, using a dense network of sensors and automated buoys. Historically, their attention focused on what happens at the surface, tidal rhythms, wind-driven currents, and surging waves. But as each powerful storm has swept in, their instruments have detected a puzzling trend. Ground elevations changing, at first subtle, now rapidly accelerating as storms intensify. The shock, Dr. Ma explains, is that the land is moving down even as the sea is rising. What once provided security is no longer safe, because every extreme wave now combines with sinking land below. This is a compound hazard, one that rewrites the map of risk. In technical terms, critical regions once mapped above the reach of disaster are now abruptly inside the new danger zone. Unusual events, like backflow flooding or inland inundation with no local rainfall, are now happening in neighborhoods designed to be dry. Footage from Arcata and Humboldt Bay, once considered buffered by their elevation and inland protection, shows barriers overwhelmed in less than an hour, with seawater flooding past what were thought to be secure limits. Emergency officials are forced to contend with change at a tempo no forecast or evacuation plan envisioned. We believed we had time. Now, our timelines must adapt, says an officer from the Del Norte County Emergency Center. Each new bulletin echoes the same warning. Evacuate low-lying areas. Previous safe zones are at risk. Underneath this surface chaos grows a more quietly devastating problem. Sensors embedded in ocean bluffs and marshlands from San Francisco south to Orange County record an accelerating decline in ground elevation. Geologic shifts that once took decades or even centuries are being paced by the pounding of monster waves and repeated storm surges. Former high tide lines vanish. Water now breaks not against rocky shore, but against city foundations and streets. Why have these changes aligned so suddenly? And what has tipped California's coast into its current state of extreme vulnerability? Scientists point not to a single villain, but to a rare and dangerous convergence of hazards. Atmospheric physicists, such as Dr. Lena Chang, collaborating with coastal geologists, frame the present disaster as a compound event where multiple threats unite, multiplying dangers beyond what anyone could cause alone. At the disaster's heart is an exceptional sequence of amplified Pacific storms. Tracking these systems from thousands of miles offshore, experts have watched them arrive in a relentless series, sending swell after massive swell into California's already stressed shores. We're seeing wave sets on par with the largest in the historical record, reports Dr. Chang. But the critical factor is how little time there is between each pulse. The coast is battered repeatedly. There's no chance for recovery or adaptation. The effect is clear in every layer of protection. Raised berms, seawalls, and sand dunes, all originally engineered for yesterday's worst-case scenarios, have been overmatched. Live sensor feeds reveal consecutive breaches and overtopping as water levels surge above previous high marks. Satellite-based time lapses show shorelines retreating so quickly, landscapes seem to shrink visibly in days, not years. According to Dr. Chang, Every new storm cycle erases historical safety margins. The record for high water, for wave height, for coastal flood is being repeatedly shattered. Meanwhile, land subsidence, a long understood but previously gradual process, has accelerated under these conditions. What was typically measured in mere millimeters a year is now happening over days or weeks in hard-hit locations. Subsidence normally results from subtle shifts, the compaction of deep soils, tectonic settling, or human-driven groundwater extraction. But with the arrival of back-to-back severe storms and heightened wave energy, these slow processes are being supercharged, causing inches of lost elevation in a fraction of the usual time. The key dynamic, Dr. Ma notes, is how multiple protective layers are collapsing at once. Monster waves breach external defenses, and unstable ground below magnifies each incursion, sweeping water and debris even further inland than any prior disaster plan envisioned. This forms a feedback loop. More powerful waves bring greater damage, which undermines the ground and builds pathways for even more devastating surges to come. The big question, the one once consigned to far-off decades, now presses urgently. Can any coastline endure when every hazard intensifies and accelerates at once? Nowhere is this shifting ground more visible than where human engineering meets the dynamic wildness of the sea. California's vast network of coastal defenses, piers, seawalls, elevated highways, reinforced harbors, was intended to defend life and property against the fiercest imaginable storms of the past. In this new climate, those defenses are rapidly losing ground. Drone footage at dawn shows scenes reminiscent of disaster fiction. Beachfront homes balanced on fragmented pillars, public streets abruptly ending in abrupt drop-offs, city infrastructure darkened as transformers are drowned by salt water. In the city of Pacifica, a concrete seawall, long cited as the region's most robust defense, is shattered by unprecedented waves, with sections crumbling and tumbling seaward. Emergency crews must retreat as entire stretches of bluff collapse within minutes. Further south, the Santa Cruz Boardwalk, a long-standing icon, lies awash under murky salt water, the pilings beneath rides and shops undermined by a fury of waves and accelerated erosion. Local crews working to reinforce barriers find their efforts overcome within an hour, as protective berms yield under the tide's onslaught. The consensus from every emergency outpost is bleak. Every frontline defense has been overwhelmed. And it is not just the visible coast at risk, but also the infrastructure that underpins vital services. Saltwater surges into electrical substations, triggering blackouts for tens of thousands in sudden waves of darkness. Cell towers collapse in the face of gusting winds and eroding soil, impeding emergency notifications, while primary evacuation routes are taken out by landslides or by floodwaters carving up entire lanes in minutes. Emergency shelters, planned as brief sanctuaries, rapidly overflow. First responders are blocked by impassable roads and fractured communication lines, confronted by a harsh reality. Help cannot always reach those in need. Lisa Mendoza, an emergency manager in Sacramento, sums up a widely shared realization. Our plans relied on history. Now, the ground itself has changed. It's not just a matter of confronting rising water, but of coping with the disappearance of the very land beneath us. How could disaster models considered robust just months ago have underestimated the present crisis's speed and scale so severely? To answer this, scientists return to the network of data flowing from the coast. The most basic assumption that the ground itself is stable between major disruptions no longer holds. Dr. Ma's team first highlighted anomalous subsidence rates near San Francisco's Marina District and in Orange County's marshes. What was once measured in millimeters over a year is now observed nearly an inch in less than a month in the hardest hit locations. This new instability hits hardest where safety was once presumed. Families living well outside traditional floodplains wake up to find their streets transformed into lagoons. Inland towns and low-lying valleys, used to worrying about rainfall or upstream river flooding, face saltwater overflows driven by nothing but monster storm surge and newly sunken land. Satellite time-lapse reveals a coastline receding as though carved by an unseen force. Piers and walkways shorten. Whole neighborhoods are redrawn at or even below sea level. Familiar landscape features, fences, parks, and even roadways are swallowed up, lost to a dangerous mix of rising water and vanishing ground. This abrupt change is devastating, not just materially, but psychologically. Each time storms come and go without apparent consequence, a sense of security deepens, until, inevitably, a compound event like this shatters the illusion. The tragedy, warns Dr. Ma, is how quickly safety turns to danger. Ground thought secure in one season can vanish by the next. The window for preparation keeps narrowing, and may already be gone in some places. Experts caution bluntly, as floodplain maps become outdated by sinking ground, no existing model can guarantee safety. Abrupt transitions, beaches replaced by marsh, highways truncated by slumping cliffs are stark testaments to a process accelerating with every major storm. To find the root cause of this crisis, scientists return again to the complex interplay of hazards, emphasizing not a single trigger, but the rare alignment of extreme marine and geologic forces. Dr. Lena Chang of the Pacific Center for Ocean and Atmospheric Research identifies a confluence of factors. We tracked long-period waves spawned by massive Pacific storms and lingering hurricane remnants, racing across the ocean with little energy lost. Layered atop these are periods of marine heat and high atmospheric instability, a recipe for unprecedented extremes. Every wave of storm energy not only lifts and scours the coast, but leaves the land lower, more vulnerable for the next assault. Instrumented buoys capture waves at Scripps Pier and elsewhere, reaching heights never previously recorded. Sets soaring above 50 feet, bordering on the extreme scenarios formerly reserved for modeling exercises. With each repeated battering, those surges breach already compromised barriers, and with the ground now sinking, every defense yields more quickly than before. The critical question, the one voiced only in the heat of emergency, is stark. If every safeguard can be breached, what stands between the present chaos and total collapse? Dr. Ye Ling Ma puts it plainly. Our expectations have not kept pace with reality. The land is subsiding, and sea levels are rising faster than we can model. We are seeing the new extremes only as they arrive, with boundaries at every level, the physical and the psychological, erased by monster waves, storm surges, and landfalling weather. The logic of coastal preparedness is upended. If disaster were measured only in terms of what is lost, homes consumed by the sea, highways flooded, neighborhoods darkened, then already the scale is overwhelming. But the deeper cost lies in the unraveling of certainty and the shifting meaning of home itself for those rooted at the water's edge. Everywhere, the cycle repeats. Residents return through neighborhoods newly redrawn by advancing tides. Old maps are replaced by images of water lines pushing deeper inland than anyone in living memory recalls. People once oriented by hedges, street signs, and tree lines now face altered or vanished landmarks, with salty water as the only boundary. For planners, responders, and everyday Californians, the psychological toll is immense. We're asking people to adapt to new realities daily, admits Lisa Mendoza. Preparation means planning for the unthinkable, again and again. Shelters are filled not just by one-time evacuees, but by families relocated more than once, trust shaken in the stability of the land and the protection of old infrastructure. The effects reach into daily life. Habitats designated as permanent, parks, wetlands, even city playgrounds, are overtaken with every surge, and with them go the familiar rhythms that help communities feel anchored. Schools close for both flood and fears about the stability of their grounds, while businesses hesitate to reopen, unsure if the next high tide will bring another round of damage. Yet science pushes ahead. Emergency teams deploy short-term sensors to measure ground movement during every storm. Drone surveys refresh each week, documenting the pace at which the coastline's shape changes, sometimes by meters, not just inches or feet. Homes that once drew high prices for seafront views now find themselves measured by how quickly the underlying land is vanishing. Faced with uncertainty, cities and towns are forced to reckon with a bitter truth. On a coast where the map itself can change overnight, the meaning of home is no longer fixed. As the day's crisis deepens, the scale of necessary response emerges. Emergency crews report major roadways, like iconic sections of Highway 1, fractured. Their supporting ground collapsed. Streets and critical neighborhoods, formerly flagged as safe, are abruptly recategorized as high risk. Emergency shelters, never intended for long-term displacement, struggle with swelling populations and unclear timelines for residents' return. Across research centers and command posts, from San Diego to Eureka, experts work around the clock, compiling data and rewriting coastal risk models. The relentless force of the Pacific has turned theory into reality, leaving a permanent mark on how California will plan, build, and recover. The ocean's energy, once considered in terms of decades and centuries, is now a daily force reshaping lives and landscapes. The core challenge has shifted. The urgent question is not only how to rebuild after each collapse, but how to plan for a future in which change, not stability, is the rule. As Dr. Ma concludes, we cannot outbuild or outmodel this crisis. Our best hope lies in flexibility, adaptation, and a readiness for the new extremes. Somewhere between first response and reflective planning, a new ethos is forming, a recognition that the coastline of the past cannot be restored, only adapted to. Once, the focus was on protecting every inch from the relentless sea. Now, decisions must be made about what to defend, what to let go, and how communities can survive repeated and accelerating loss. As evening descends on battered shores, a shared resolve is emerging in emergency centers, research labs, and temporary shelters. The old security, based in decades of historical data, must give way to a new model, one grounded in preparedness for constant change and respect for the unpredictable power of nature. We are entering an era where the very pace of change is the hazard, Dr. Ye-Ling Ma reminds us. With the margin for error narrowed to almost nothing, Californians facing monster waves, sinking terrain, and a surging ocean must rely on vigilance, preparedness, and a new respect for nature's force. Every collapsed bluff, every flooded street is a stark reminder. The coastline's fate is still being written, minute by minute, storm by storm, and choice by choice. Stay vigilant, stay safe, and remember, on a coast where everything can change in a single night, only adaptability and preparedness endure.
So we're at the end of the program. I would just like to make my final comment. It's really simple. May God be with us all. Believe me or not, know it or not, accept it or not, we are going to go through it. We are going to go through it. And so for the next 24/7, 365, stay black and fuck all white folks.